All right, good evening. I've got 6:30. I'm here to call to order this meeting of the Columbus Common Council for our regular meeting. It's a snowy Monday, February 17th. Pat, if you're ready, could you please take a roll call for us?
Gray,
Present.
Johnson will be late. Reed. Here. Ryan.
Here.
Tylen.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
Thank you. Also, Attorney Johnson will be running late this evening as well. He told us that prior. So, if able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. Item number 4 is to approve the agenda. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved for the evening. On to correspondence and communications. There was no one signed up this evening. Was there anyone present this evening that did not get a chance to sign up that wished to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening, we have the Council and Committee of the Whole minutes for February 4th, 2020, and also application for operator's license for July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. We have one name. That is Christina M. Bastarash. Any questions on the consent agenda? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Move on to new business item number 1. Consider and take action to approve the recommendation from Rupert Milky Consulting Engineers that C.O.W. Construction Corporation be awarded the wastewater treatment facility influence screen replacement contract in the amount of $798,000, including the alternate manufacturer for the screen and washer. This did come to the Committee of the Whole. The last Committee of the Whole meeting, there were a few questions about the alternate bid. There's some new information in the packet, which I think outlines that. Jason is here if there's any additional questions. I definitely appreciate the new information. I like the reduced water use with the alternate, the EnviroCare, which is the piece of equipment we'd be receiving through this contract. So if there's any questions, Jason's here. Otherwise, the recommendation is to approve the contract with C.O.W. for $798,000. Sandy?
I'll make a motion to award the contract to C.O.W. Construction Corporation for the wastewater treatment facility influence screen replacement contract in the amount of $798,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract with C.O.W. Construction for the wastewater treatment facility influence screen replacement contract in the amount of $798,000. Is there any discussion or questions on the motion? If none, can we please take a roll call, Pat?
Reed. Aye. Ryan.
Aye.
Tylen.
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to new business item number 2. Consider and take action to approve a contract with United Liquid Waste Recycling Incorporated to haul away and store the city's excess sludge. This again was discussed at the last Committee of the Whole meeting. I think there were some questions brought up by City Attorney Johnson, some language that was in the contract that we previously had in place. I think he felt obligated to tell us what his concerns were. Section 2 of the contract indicates that the end of the initial 2-year term, the option for an additional 2-year term with price review shall be offered to the city. I don't think that he saw any big issue with that, just questioned why it was in there, but I think the sticking point was Section 4H, the hold harmless clause, which did not go in both directions, only in one direction. That's kind of where we left off with this. Dave did produce an email that we were handed this evening from the insurance company with the question concerning the liability. It does look like we do have some insurance coverage for any above-ground or sudden accidental occurrence subject to a $250,000 limit. But they, again, agree with the contract. That would be nice to have that language in there, so the hold harmless goes both ways. We don't have Paul here this evening, so I'd like to have a conversation and figure out what to do about this. Andy?
Are they the only company that does this?
Don't
we know?
I don't know that they're the only, but I don't think there's a whole lot to turn to. That would be my guess, because I know that we've worked with them in the past. They're out of Kleiman, which is half an hour from here. So, Jason, do you have any idea, or Dave, do you have any idea if there's any competition in this?
Well, I'd ask Jason to comment about that. Something that you could consider is approving this conditionally with the hold harmless language modified as recommended by the city attorney, now supported by our insurance carrier. And if they agree, then the mayor could be authorized to sign the contract. I know that the director is requesting this of the council of the wastewater treatment facility. John has requested you approve it.
Sure. That's an option. Katie?
I do recall him saying something about, we might be in trouble if, in time, I think he said April, with the storage that they currently have now.
Yes,
So
the-
that concerns me, so I like the idea of approving it conditionally.
Ian?
Like I said before, I'm personally not concerned about the hold harmless language in the contract. I don't really think there's a reason for it to go both ways, and so I'm perfectly comfortable approving this 100%. I don't think it needs to be approved conditionally.
Okay. Any other questions from the council on this?
Yeah, I guess I'm also not super concerned. There really should be language that goes both ways for fairness sake, but I'm not worried about it.
We can do it one of two ways, I guess. We can just vote it the way that it is. I guess the only reason I would have any pause is that we are getting a recommendation from our city attorney that it would be nice to have the language in there. I think he's taken some time to try to work with the vendor to get it in there. Why they won't comply is beyond me, but maybe if they see that we had a contingency placed on the contract, it may compel them to move a little bit or have some flexibility. I don't know what would prevent us from coming back and reapproving this in a month if we needed to. If they just said, no, we're not going to put that language in, take it or leave it. If we did put that the stipulation in there in the motion this time, I'm not really sure, but that's up to the council, I guess. So. And hearing from the insurance company, I definitely appreciate you doing that, Dave. I can understand why they would like to see that in the contract as well to help prevent any potential claims. So.
Okay, so I guess I would make a motion for Dave's recommendation to approve the contract with United Liquid Waste Recycling contingent on the language of the hold harmless being reciprocal. And what was the other part? You had two things, I thought.
The attorney's recommendation.
Based on the attorney's recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, based on the attorney's recommendation.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay. Need to find my agenda. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract with United Liquid Waste Recycling to haul away and store the city's excess sludge, contingent upon the language in section 4H with the hold harmless agreement and the recommendation of the city attorney. Any discussion on that? All right. Do we need a roll call, or is a voice vote going to be okay on that? It's a contract financially, so, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Sorry, gotta get my paper straight here. Next item is consider and take action to approve the CHLPC ADA entryway project and authorize them to move forward with the bid process. This was brought to the last committee of the whole and presented by Carolyn Fredericks. With an update on this, I believe what they wanted approval of tonight is to move forward on the project and for them to move forward to get bids on the project. I believe we also advised Carolyn to work with Jason Letha or an engineer just on the bid documents themselves. So, any questions? Carolyn is here. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any action then on new business number 3.
I move to approve the CHLPC ADA entryway project and authorize them to move forward in the bid process.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Columbus Historic Landmarks Preservation Committee ADA entryway project and to authorize them to move forward with the bid process. Is there any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to item number 4, consider and take action to approve the proposed 2020 capital projects budget amendment and resolution. Dave's been working on this for quite a while with Kim. I believe there are probably some minor tweaks that happened even between the last discussion we had and what we have in our packet tonight. That is outlined in the packet, but again, we have Kim here with us and we have Dave to answer any specific questions about where the funding comes from for the projects that are contained in the amendment. Are there questions from the council on this? Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. If you allow me some grace here to sort through my thoughts as we update you on the proposal before you since we last reviewed this. In the cover sheet or in my report, there's some updates, new information that have been incorporated into the resolution and what's been proposed. As you know, listed in the amendment is the purchase of a street sweeper. The original estimate was $175, and the Director of Public Works has a new quote or a recent quote for about $160,000. So that's been changed. The second has to do with the first phase of stormwater improvements to the Second Ward Creek, and this would be the first phase of improvements that would be completed with or by the county, and that's been updated to an increase of $80,000 from our first estimate of $75,000. And you recall at the last discussion, the mayor had a concern about having some funds in this amendment to pay for potential additional work that would be required after the investigation in the spring of the leak at the pool. So we've added a line in the aquatic center account of $15,000 to fix any potential drainage leak problems. And again, that contractor, Newman contractor, is the plan is that they'll come back in the spring and do some digging, and hopefully with the warmer weather they'll be able to identify the problem and fix it. So those three items have been included in the resolution that you requested. In the amendment, again, I would just review that from the December 10th meeting, when the finance director and various department heads presented additional projects to the anticipated borrowing for the Hibbert Street project, that this is about $1 million less, and through our efforts reviewing other funding sources and prioritizing, we've come to a dollar amount here of $1,912,998.61. And I should add that the finance director came to me and said that those funds have been earning interest in the investments in the treasury, so that's why you see a few $100 adjustments there on the revenue side, and it's been balanced on the expenditure side. So just to review this, I'm looking at the resolution. The borrowing that would be anticipated is $1,513,000. That would those bond proceeds would be used to pay for the Hibbert Street project, in addition to the stormwater improvements at the Second Ward Creek with the updated number that the Director of Public Works gave us. That's why that number's up a little bit. The other projects would be funded by the tax levy that you set when you approved the budget. The 2018 general obligation bond proceeds, the 2017 bond proceeds, and a transfer from the unassigned funds from the general fund, and then the funds that have accumulated through the sale of equipment that's recorded in the asset disposal funds line item for approximately $40,200, for a total of $1,912,998. So what this is paying for is the senior center roof. We talked about there are needs in the facilities, and the strategy here is to fix the roof at the senior center and table those until you review the roadmap visioning plan that I understand from the planner will be looked at probably this summer. And then you'll have a section of that plan is a facilities assessment, a very comprehensive facilities assessment. And we agree that that would be the best position for the council to evaluate facilities needs going forward. But there are funds here to fix the senior center roof, to give you time to look at long-range plan for facilities. The police department improvements replace 2 AC units. That's estimated at $7,100. I guess they're 20+ years old. The police department radios, based on the chief's estimate of 56.3, $80,000 for the Second Ward Creek. Again, that would be a first phase of those improvements, kind of a pay-as-you-go type of thing. The aquatic center that we talked about, the Hibbert Street reconstruction, the street sweeper, the expenses for the right-of-way acquisitions for the Highway 89 project that you've authorized, and then a transfer from the debt service fund combined with what you budgeted in the debt service to pay off the loan at the F&M Bank for the end loader that was purchased last year. And I think I'll just comment, there were discussions that have a lot of merit to what you talked about with the mill and overlay projects and stormwater concerns. I guess I would just remind the council that there's some very significant improvements that you're going forward with here with the Hibbert Street project and the pavement and the slurry seal recommended by the engineer and the Director of Public Works. that is almost a mile of resurfacing, and that represents 5% of the 27 miles in the city. That's about 5% of improvements this year. The stormwater, obviously with the Third Ward Creek, that will be addressed, as well as the purchase of a sweeper, which is very important, as you know, in preventative maintenance, to prevent the surface water that drains from all the parking lots and the roofs, all the commercial properties, all the homes, the streets and so forth, into the stormwater system. A good sweeper, keeping the streets as clean as possible, is preventing that material going into storm sewers, polluting the rivers, and clogging up storm sewers and creating all kinds of problems. So you're addressing it from that aspect of it as well. And again, part of my motivation here is to provide a bridge to when you have the long-range vision plan coming before you this summer, and you're going to be sorting through a lot of information going forward. And your next administrator, hopefully, I know you've made that a priority for the next administrator, to work with you in developing a long-range capital improvement plan. So I think that this is important to use the capacity that you have to borrow money. I think it's wise because you're going to be dealing with facilities needs, aging infrastructure, and economic development opportunities, and you have an economic development opportunity that you're going to be talking about tonight in the closed session. And to be able to be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities, you need to have debt capacity to do that. And the final comment is that hopefully when you have the new administrator and you're giving him or her that charge, that with the TIF district being taken off the tax roll, and that value that you've built up being available going forward will give you an opportunity to have to increase funds in the budget for road maintenance, to increase funds in the budget for equipment replacement, so that you're not reacting to those needs and having to borrow money for them. So just sharing my thoughts and motivation and in spending the time that we have spent on this, and I'm open to any questions.
Oh, I had a question. I was a little confused under the highlights of the budget amendment resolution. There's a line where it says of the $70,599 and odd change from the 2017 GO bond for James Street, apply $32,782 and set up a new account for Highway 89 and capital projects in the amount of $58,900. I wasn't sure where around, let's say, $15,000 came from, because I was subtracting the $32,000 from the 70-some thousand.
You have to run that by me again, I'm sorry. So which two numbers are you looking at?
So the line says of the $70,599.31 from the 2017 GO bonds for James Street, apply $32,782 and set up a new account for Highway 89 and capital projects in the amount of $54,900. And I was wondering where the difference comes from.
Okay. Well, I think when you look at, when we add up the revenues versus the expenses, when you add it up, that's how the number worked out. And, you know, I can ask Kim to address that. Kim, are you?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just looking at that line, I was going, oh dear, there seems to be a shortage. But,
So it's
okay.
just a net effect, that, you know, and balancing it out between the revenues and the expenditures, total net effect. Does that make sense? I hope.
I believe what she's asking is, how does 54,900 and 32,782 equal 75,99? Is that your question? That's what it would appear. It looks like 87,000, not 70,000.
Exactly. I was just trying to figure out where that difference came from.
Kim, can you approach the podium?
I honestly think it's just the way that the paragraph is worded. What we did is we looked at the capital project costs we know we're going to have for the right of way.
Turned off again. I think they did it at the same time. At least it was, sorry.
All right.
No.
Okay, if I talk really loud. Can you hear me if I talk really loud?
There you go.
Okay, all right. I think it's just the way that it's worded. What we did is we knew that we were going to have those costs for the Highway 89 right-of-way acquisitions, and that there would be a shortfall between the revenues that we actually had on hand and what we knew we were going to have to spend in total expenditures. And so looking at those 2017 bonds, one of the purposes of those bonds was to help purchase road right-of-way. And so it made sense to use some of those bonds funds to help offset some of the Highway 89 capital expenses. But I think it's more the way that that was actually worded that's kind of confusing, because I had to read it a second time too, because it almost implies that the 54.9 and the 32.7 equal the, yeah,
It does
which
imply
it
it.
doesn't. Yeah.
Right.
It implies it.
Yeah.
But that's not what was
Right.
meant. And then, were the reimbursements expected in the future a big part of the difference?
Yeah, what we'll do is, once we know that all the right-of-ways, the easements have been acquired, then there'll be an application to the Department of Transportation for a reimbursement to the city for those expenditures. I can't say that would happen yet this year. It may flow into 2021 depending on how those acquisitions occur, but we would be basically reimbursing ourselves for those costs.
And I believe it's 100%
Yes, it is.
from DOT.
It's 100% of the costs of the actual property acquisitions, and any staff time, mileage, whatever we have as well involved in acquiring those properties, or even working with the Highway 89 project.
The city has to pay that up front and then be reimbursed over time, so.
Hopefully the
Account needs to be-
reimbursements help offset the cost of the project when we get to that point, once we've gotten that reimbursement. It's bridging that gap, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Kim.
Welcome.
Are there other questions from the council on this? Oh, we have Kim. You gonna make a comment, Andy? Go ahead, Ian.
I can't remember, what would the cost be of completing the second ward improvements as opposed to just doing a portion? And is it completely
It's about
unrealistic?
$225,000.
Is it completely unrealistic to be able to do it? Like, I understand the council not wanting to borrow for a mill and overlay because of the term and the life expectancy of a mill and overlay. But that is an important project, and it's just going to cost us more, most likely, to do it in two portions than it would be to just do it all at once. Like, is it that unrealistic to borrow that much more in this year's budget and just get it done? Like,
Well, certainly the council can do that. You could add to the borrowing. The other issue, I probably should have brought this up, is LRIP grant that's been applied for the Hibbert Street project. The schedule that Jason has is that we should be notified, or the city should be notified about that grant March 20th. And depending on what you find out at that point, you could revisit this. Obviously, if you get the grant, I suspect there's a lot of competition for that, but if you get a grant, then you can revisit this and assess what you want to do at that point. I don't think that we'll be, or the city will be looking at borrowing until after, obviously, until you know the outcome of that grant, and you could decide at that point what you want to do.
So is there a need to adopt this amendment, or would it be more prudent to wait until we know?
I think that, well, I think it's important that you adopt it because of all the other projects that if you don't, then they would be on hold. There are some timeliness involved in some of these things that the staff and I need direction on, that if you were to approve this amendment, we could get to work on moving forward with those other projects in a timely way.
Also it affects,
And then the storm sewer project with the second ward project, obviously.
does this also affect, the things that we're going to talk about later in the committee of the whole?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
So, like back to my original question, like would it be just out of line for us to borrow enough to complete the second ward creek? Like, is that just something that we absolutely shouldn't do, would be a bad idea to borrow that much this year? Like,
Pardon?
that's my real question, is like, we cut so much out of this, like, did we cut, was it all absolutely necessary or not?
My understanding of why Dave kind of went through this to, I think, formalize, a lengthy list of projects and formalize it through this as a capital projects amendment is when we go through the budget process, we're kind of talking about some of these things and we're not talking about other things. Like the road projects are usually a separate thing because we know we're going to bond. And I think what Dave's trying to do is take the funds that he knows that we have available and on hand that we can try to utilize to offset the borrowing. Because I think when Dave looked at the initial numbers for the entire list, that our debt levy would have increased by over $200,000 next year. That has a huge impact on what we can do. I mean, we could be cutting things out of our general budget to try to push that much into our debt, unless we're making interest-only payments for the first 3 years, which I'm not a big fan of, just to get things done. It's not real sustainable. So I think what Dave was trying to do is just say, let's just try to squish everything together here into this amendment so we have some direction on the projects we can accomplish this year. I do think that there is flexibility in the process though, Ian, because we haven't bonded yet. So I think what Dave was saying, if we got that grant at the time of bonding, we could still bond for the same amount of money, and we would have $670,000 of cash freed up for other projects that didn't make it into this capital project, which was part of the budget for 2020. So I think there's always flexibility, but I think we just need to know that we've got placeholders to cover our bases, which is why I was insistent on having something for the pool. I don't know if $15,000 is going to be enough, to tell you the truth. I don't know, but it's on the list to show that we're talking about that as a project. But if we get to that point where it's going to cost $80,000, we have to look at other alternatives, whether it's a short-term loan through the bank or the state land trust fund or whatever it is. So I think there's always flexibility yet, but I think what Dave is trying to do is kind of work backwards a little bit to the beginning of the conversation and the end of the budget to formalize all this into one amendment. And I know you've put a lot of work into this, Dave, working with Kim, but I think as an interim administrator, you're doing the right thing to kind of have the new admin come in and say, let's start working on a 5-year capital plan and formalize this so we know what to expect next year and the year after and the year after, because we don't necessarily bond every year as a city. We probably can't do that. So you have to capture those projects in your bonding, whether that's every 2 or 3 years. So I think there's still flexibility. I know that stormwater is something that I want to address as well. I'm just glad that we're finally addressing $80,000 is a good amount to start with, and I wish we could do the whole project at once, but there's just we can't fit everything into one list, I guess, is what Dave is trying to get us to look at here, is prioritize and spend within our means until we've got a long-term plan, and we've got the roadmap portion of that in our thinking as well when we make that 5-year plan or 10-year plan. So, hope I didn't reword things for you, Dave. I think I said the same
I
thing.
think you expressed it very well.
Okay. I think there's still flexibility, and the priorities that we have aren't going to stop being priorities. It's just trying to formalize this into the funds on hand and keep the borrowing to a digestible level, I guess, at this point. So.
Right, and I mean, I get that. I was just asking, is that additional $140,000 completely not? Is that out of line? Like, can that be included and this still be a good path forward? Like, because when's the last time the city has done anything about this? By the time we hear back from March 20th about that and we redecide or reallocate money, it will be a different council sitting up here. If the council in the past hasn't done anything about this, and this is a serious problem, is it ever going to get done again? Should this be in our budget? Should we be fixing this? Can it be in our budget? Can we fix this before we never fix it again? The city never has before. Like, is it logical? Can it fit?
I think we can make anything fit we want, but I guess the point is that that's your number one priority to get in here. There's other priorities. I think everybody's trying to negotiate a little bit on this to say, is Dave's recommendation fair? Are we addressing everything that we possibly can with funds on hand and borrowing? To say that the city's done nothing, I think is maybe not to your satisfaction. I get it, Ian, and we all have our issues that we'd like to address. We all want to fix the roads, but we can't fix all the roads at once, and it takes, I think, capital planning to address that, to make sure that you're consistently addressing all the things you want to address, as opposed to reacting to one item or the other and then neglecting another item while you're addressing another one. So I don't know that we're going to have an answer tonight. We'd have to look at Ellers to say, if we increase our borrowing this much, what does that do to our debt levy next year? I can't give you that answer tonight. What's the will of the council this evening, I guess? Andy, did you have a comment? Or?
Nope, I'm gonna make a motion to approve resolution 3-20, a resolution amending the 2020 capital budget, capital projects fund, debt service fund, and general fund budgets as presented. I want to thank Dave for all the hard work he put into this.
I'll second that motion. I'll second it.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the proposed 2020 capital project budget amendment and resolution as presented in our packet. Is there further discussion on this? All right. Dave?
The city attorney's not here, so I'll just, in your discussion, point out that it does require a 2/3 vote of the council, and the city attorney's told me that's 5 votes to amend the budget.
Thank you for pointing that out, Dave. All right, is there any further questions, conversation? If none, can we please take a roll call, Pat?
Reed. Ryan. Tylen.
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Gray. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for having a good, thorough conversation so we understand what we're trying to accomplish at this time. All right, we'll move on to item number 5 then, which is consider and take action to approve the private sewer lateral replacement program and its application for all qualifying property owners of the city of Columbus. We discussed this at the last committee of the whole. I think Jason wanted to look at this policy once again before the Hibbert Street project to make sure that this grant was available for any residents on the reconstruction corridor. I think that there has been other conversations about possibly offering the grant opportunity to any qualifying utility customer that has a failing lateral in the city, it's a benefit to the utility to get rid of those old leaky laterals. So if there's any questions, we've got Jason here. There is funding for this. I believe what we did for the last set of street projects was allocate a set dollar amount into a budget. It looks like the remaining money in that line item is $18,000. I have no indication of how many people may be interested on Hibbard. We haven't reached out yet, but I think we may want to address that issue tonight if we want to take action on this, if we want to increase the budget. The budget amount just comes from the connection fee fund, which is over $270,000. We did settle on the $1,800 grant amount when we created this during the last set of projects. I think we need to consider that, whether we want to keep that at $1,800 or adjust that before we approve this as well, but that's what's on the agenda for this evening. So, Trina, did you have a comment or a question?
Oh, I think I would like to keep the reimbursement amount the same at the $1,800. For the budget itself, trying to remember if we started with $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if we would just want to move another, 12,000 over, just to refill it.
I would agree. I think we should put more money in, but it should be something that's divisible by 1,800. So it doesn't need to be a odd number like that. You could do 36,000 and have enough for 20 homes, or you could do something different. I just thought it should be a little more even.
I think there's roughly 30 homes, but I don't know that the sewer service all goes towards Hibbard. I suppose the people downhill are probably going somewhere else, so I'm gonna roughly estimate 20 homes, 24 homes.
Is this including the portion of Turner Street as well, or is that not?
I don't think they're doing wastewater down there.
Okay.
That's just stormwater, so,
Okay,
yeah.
wasn't sure.
Someone have a calculator. What's 24 times 18, sorry?
43.
43.2?
43.2?
Would we be all right with budgeting 43,200 in case we had those? Yes, I mean, I doubt that, but again, it's sitting in the budget, so it's not, just prevents us from having to amend the budget once again if we had. Dave?
Mayor, I apologize. Did you indicate that the intent is that this would be a citywide policy? It wouldn't be just for Hibbard Street?
I think we need to talk about that. I mean, I think that I've heard some support for that in the past few years, that if a homeowner identifies a problemed lateral, that they could apply for this as long as they go through the entire process in the application, so.
Well, I believe I reported that the consultant that you've hired to approach property owners on the Highway 89 project has reported back to me that residents have brought this up. So what I've told her is that this is on the agenda, and my understanding is that if you brought in that to citywide, I know in the past you approved it project by project, but if you approve it citywide or you add the 89 project, then she can be the point of contact and share this information with the property owners there
That's
about
fantastic.
this program. So if you approve this tonight, then I would follow up with her with a letter in the policy and the application for the property owners on Highway 89.
Okay, excellent. I didn't see who was first there, sorry.
Andy. I just wanted to say I don't know what the intent of that is as far as the budget goes, because obviously we wouldn't need that this year, so we could look at that in 2022. So this is 3 years out, 2 years out, sorry.
2022.
2022, so I think, yeah, I agree. I mean, if we're gonna, do we have to formally adopt the policy that it's citywide? Because, right, I mean, it doesn't say it's limited in the memo that I noticed, but it just says to partner with city residents.
Correct, it doesn't specify that it's gotta be within the boundaries of a reconstruction.
Right.
Okay.
Do we need to formalize that anywhere, saying that it's available for any city resident, or just take them on a case-by-case basis when they reach out, or our with Dave, like Dave's doing with the 2022 project?
Under the mission, it's pretty clear to continue to partner with city residents to work towards reducing inflow and infiltration of clear waters into the sanitary sewer system. I think that's definitely a place we can start from. That's the mission, so it doesn't exclude anyone. Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just, it's actually very similar to what Andy just said. Like, I didn't see anything in here that would exclude any resident, but I would be very much for making it, clarifying that it is citywide, so that, I think it would be beneficial for her to be able to talk to the people affected with that 89 project, and to make certain that it is just very clear that any resident in Columbus can apply regardless.
Trina, go ahead.
Oh, I guess I wouldn't want to guarantee that the program would be available in the 2 or 3 years for the Highway 89 project, but I would like the information for the current program shared, so she can know what the probability would be.
I think that's why we want to shore up the policy here and the intent, because if we allocated $30,000 on the projects 2 years ago, we spent $12,000. We have $270,000. I think as long as we get the word out, I think that this will last quite a while to remediate those laterals. So I think keeping a budget, something that we pay attention to every year when we're doing the wastewater budget, the city budget, and looking at projects we have forward, and also the individual cases as well. So make a suggestion. I think we're looking at the divisible by 1,800 and possibly 24 homes on Hibbard, but if there are a couple of residents outside of the construction parameters, maybe we just bump the budget up to $50,000 to make sure we've got a little extra in there in case there are those houses outside of the parameter as well. And I can't see going through half of that, but keeps us covered. So, Andy? No. All right, so it's, oh, sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Does it affect anything, any like interest earned on money to move it from one to the other?
Kim says no.
No, so I mean, it'll most likely we won't spend it. We won't use the majority of whatever we put in there. So I would be more comfortable putting in enough so that we can ensure that at least Hibbard and the 89 project would 100%, if every single affected person would be covered, and then a handful of others. It probably wouldn't get used, but if it doesn't make a difference if it sits in one account or the other, might as well put enough in, like maybe even 70,000 if we have 270, leave 200 and.
Sure. Shows a commitment anyway, is that what you're getting at? Yep. We do still agree on the 1,800 per lateral? Is it, okay, I see some consensus there. Then let's just settle on an amount that we want to make sure we've got in the budget. Someone want to form a motion, or Andy's got his calculator out yet, so.
50,428
Sure, we'll be talking about this between now and the Hibbard Street project as well, or future councils will, for certain.
Am I correct in that collection fund theoretically is growing every year, correct?
Yes.
So we're not draining a pot that's not gaining more money, so.
That's my understanding. Trina?
Oh, I mean, I assume we're draining it faster than it's collecting, but I think it'll be okay.
So in 2 projects we've used $12,000 or $18,000? 4 projects.
Yeah. 2016 projects.
Okay.
Valerie, to everybody, we had 4 homes take advantage of it with the last project.
2018 on, or what about Mill, do you recall? I know.
We didn't even have the project back then.
We didn't?
We didn't.
We did.
We
But it
basically
changed.
started, well, we didn't have the project then. We
Yep.
started with 18, so 16 wasn't affected.
Time flies. Don't we do it? We do it for James Street? No? No. All right.
Ian?
How much do we collect in that fund every year, about?
It really depends on the number of homes, commercial properties that are built during the year or connect. It's based on meter size, so a normal home is 1,000, and then it goes up from there based on the size of the meter up to $15,000 as a connection fee. So, we were fortunate. We've had a fairly strong couple of years with new home starts. I want to say that we aren't going to see that going forward because we're running out of housing stock or vacant lots. But I would say maybe 8,000 to 10,000 a year we would be putting back into this fund. And then just to clarify on the current budget, that's actually 18,000 that I put into the sewer budget from their actual operating dollars. So it's outside that $270,000 that we have on the side in that connection fee account. So that's helpful at all.
Okay, it is. Thank you, Kim. Any further questions? Does anyone want to formalize this into a motion?
Do we have to address the?
I'll do it.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the private sewer lateral replacement program and its application for all qualifying property owners with a total budget of $50,400.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the private sewer lateral replacement program and its application for all qualifying property owners of the city of Columbus, the budget amount of $50,400,000, additional funding coming from the connection fee fund. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, this next one will be real easy. Consider and take action to approve the 2020 hazmat agreement with Columbia County. This is something that we do annually. It's usually $1,000 a year. This year it's $1,013. Are there any questions on this? If there are no questions, I'll entertain motion to approve that hazmat agreement with Columbia County.
Motion to approve the 2020 hazmat agreement with Columbia County.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the 2020 hazmat agreement with Columbia County. Any questions or discussion on the motion? If none, Pat, could you please take a roll call for us?
Ryan,
Aye.
Tylen,
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Pat. Number 7, consider rescheduling the council meeting of March 17th, 2020 due to the agribusiness annual dinner. This is something in years past we've rescheduled to avoid the conflict. So if city leaders would like to attend the agribusiness dinner, they're able to do so. I don't know if anyone's checked their calendars ahead of time on this. Generally, if it's a Tuesday meeting, we move to a Monday before it. I will possibly have a conflict. That's not for certain. I'll be in Minneapolis the weekend before and may not be home until right before the meeting. Being gone all weekend long and not going through the packet and showing up to run a meeting is not really appealing to me. But you can also meet without me. But I just wanted to mention that, so I can spend the weekend in Minneapolis going through the packet. That sounds like a lot of fun. Andy?
I was going to also point out, I'm probably going to have a conflict on the 17th and 18th. So I don't know if I was going to be able to make that 17th meeting anyway.
Okay.
So I can run both meetings on Monday if you need me, or we can, I'll shoot for a different day or week.
As we get closer, that may change too. I just looked at my calendar last night and saw a potential conflict, so. Anyone else have a problem with March 16th, the Monday?
16th, I may be late in
Anyone else? All right. We'll need a motion in a second to move that to the 16th then.
I'll make a motion to move the March 17th city council meeting to March 16th.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to move the regularly scheduled March 17th, 2020 meeting to March 16th, Monday, due to the agribusiness annual dinner. Any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. On to another reschedule. Consider rescheduling the council meeting of April 7th, 2020 due to the spring election. I did not have a conflict on Mondays the 6th. I'm good with that. Anyone else have calendar issues? All right. Anyone want to make a motion to memorialize that meeting date change?
Make a motion to change the regular city council meetings from April 7th to April 6th.
Motion and a second to reschedule the regularly scheduled April 7th, 2020 city council meeting to April 6th due to the spring election. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Move on to the city claims. Consider and take action on claims in the amount of $834,002.98. Any questions on the claims? I see none. If there's no questions, I'll entertain motion to approve the claims in the amount read.
Make a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $834,002.98.
All right, we get a motion and a second to approve the city claims in the amount read. Is there any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, could you please take a roll call, Pat?
Tylen?
Aye.
Traxler?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Reed? Ryan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Welcome, Paul.
Good evening.
You almost missed the whole first meeting. Congratulations.
Well, I should have waited a little.
All right, we'll move on to report of city officers. I did not prepare much for this evening, other than to remind people we're meeting this evening because there's an election tomorrow, so please get out and vote tomorrow. Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's nice to get up and just stretch out a little bit. I'm just referring to my report that I gave you today and just highlight a few things. Unfortunately, our court clerk, who just started on the 27th, resigned. And Becky, the former clerk, has agreed to staff the court on a temporary part-time basis for the month of February, so that's good. The judge is working with the district administrator for temporary support, among other things. And the administration is also working with the judge to support the court during this transition and have posted a job announcement for the now open position of court clerk. For your information, I just wanted to remind you that Hibbert Street bid opening is scheduled for this Wednesday, February 19th at 2 p.m. in the second ward room at City Hall. And also, I know that you have a tremendous meeting schedule here, and just commend you all for your work ethic and in attending meetings and working for the good of the city. Friday, February 28th from 5 to 7 at the Pavilion, we've scheduled our meet and greet with the 5 city administrator finalist candidates. All have accepted your invitation for that. And Saturday, starting at 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., interviews with the 5 city administrator candidates here at City Hall, and finishing that process among the other activities in the assessment process. After that, there will be discussion and decision, hopefully to determine who the top candidate or candidates will be. And then Tuesday, March 10th at 6:30, you've scheduled a special assessment hearing, a committee of the whole assessment hearing for the Hibbert Street project. finance director and I and the clerk will be meeting Wednesday to pull all of that information together and have the notice to the paper and to distribute letters to the residents that are affected on Hibbert Street and give them copies of the engineer's report. So you're keeping me busy. Any questions? All right, thank you. One more thing. I'd ask Lisa, our media communications coordinator, to come to the podium. Lisa has supported a volunteer group that have prepared a video that is about 3 minutes long. It promotes the City of Columbus. I think they did a very good job with it and put the city in a competition with HGTV for a hometown program. And so this video is in the competition for that program, and if the Columbus is part of that, that'll be tremendous promotion on a national network of the City of Columbus. So Lisa, can you come to the podium, please? Keep everything on automatic so it keeps rolling here. So she's going to run that from here, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to add anything? You probably have some more.
Well, I suppose, thank you for allowing me to show this off tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. And this is a project that came together very quickly. Two wonderful volunteers from the City of Columbus, Sarah Miller and Beth Riani, sort of approached me about this, and really it took control of most of the creative and the editing of it. I was there for mostly technical support and camera operation and things like that, and it was a wild ride. I think that they did wonderfully as well. And as soon as my profile loads, I will let the video speak for itself. Did you have any questions beforehand? Otherwise, I'll go back and I'll attend to my duties behind the screen. Wow. Well, that's no good. You may not get to see this tonight. I apologize. We may have to. Sure. So while that's restarting, briefly, as Dave said, this was for HGTV's hometown takeover contest. The concept is there is a show called Hometown. Takes place in Mississippi, I believe. Gosh, you know it so well. I binge watched it the weekend before I found out about this. That's the only reason I know. But this couple revitalized their hometown by redoing some homes and public spaces, and now they're taking the show on the road. So they've opened up a contest. I believe there are several thousand entries. So a win at this point is really very up in the air. We don't know when any word will be given or how. All we know is that a whole bunch of people entered. We did get a little media attention from a few channels, and NBC 15, yeah, and Channel 3000, and so that was really interesting to see the news crews in town. One moment here. Hopefully it's got me logged in. Yeah, all right. Okay.
Lisa, do we have this posted anywhere? Is it just on social media at this point, or do we have it on the city website or anywhere specific if people are interested in sharing?
Great
this?
question. Yes, if people are interested, it's on our Vimeo channel,
Okay.
the same one that we have put the city meetings on. Also, it's on our new streaming site, which is attached to the city website.
Okay.
So if you just go to the city webpage and you click on videos, you'll get to the Columbus cable site where this is.
Thank you.
And any other questions before I just let it play? Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Lisa.
Thanks again.
Hello, HGTV team. Welcome to Columbus, Wisconsin. We're so excited to show you our town. Come take a tour. We're a small town in the heart of Wisconsin with a charm that lies somewhere between It's a Wonderful Life and Mayberry. Our town is filled with these stunning historical buildings and unique neighborhoods, many that are just longing for a refresh and to make a comeback. Hey, Bree! We've even got the coffee ready to go for the team. We're passionate and focused on saving our town. This past year, we worked hard on beautification projects, and we dream of fixing up our pavilion and old abandoned theater in hopes to bring people to Columbus and raise community morale. So we've given you a tour of our downtown. We'd like to welcome you now to our train station that's been here since the 1800s. You can honestly still get a train heading up to Minneapolis to go visit friends or family or see the city. You can also head down to Milwaukee, Chicago. It's pretty exciting that this is still here. It's magical. It just absolutely needs some love, a little refresh, and that's where Aaron and Ben come in. We could use a lot of paint, any design style, and super great ideas that you guys might have. We're more than just a town with beautiful buildings. We're a town filled with heart, and we want to share that with you.
Community support, the need, the willingness to help out whenever something happens with each other. It doesn't matter if it's a church, it doesn't matter if it's a private person. Everybody's willing to pitch in and help. Even sandbagging with the community. We're all together. We're all one.
We have this wonderful downtown. But it's horribly underutilized. Kind of hasn't changed to the point that a major movie, Public Enemies, ended up here because the town looked very much like it did in the 1930s with very little effort. A jewel is the upstairs, in which there is a 400-seat auditorium that has not been used since the 1930s, and we from time to time have had people really with a desire to refurbish that facility.
The Fireman's Park Pavilion. This hosts a lot of great events within our community, a lot of things that bring us together.
We would be so honored if you selected Columbus, Wisconsin to be your hometown takeover. So Aaron and Ben, get your bags packed. We're ready for you to come and sprinkle your design style on our town.
It's more than just old-fashioned buildings that we have. We have the old-fashioned too. And we'll have one waiting for you. But what if they don't drink? Tea. We'll serve them tea.
Thank you for your work on that, Lisa, and thanks for the volunteers in the community that put their effort into that submission to HDTV. That's great publicity, so thanks. Unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
A motion, a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adjourn for a few minutes and return with the Committee of the Whole meeting. Thank you.
17th, time is 7:48 PM. Matt, if you could take the roll call.
Traxler,
Here.
Gray,
Present?
Johnson.
Here.
Reed, Ryan,
Here.
Tylen, Tome. Here. All present.
All right, this meeting was noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. First thing up I want to do is approve the agenda. I'm going to make a small tweak here. I'm going to move number 18 up to review and discuss the purchase of the PD radios, up to number, where number 11 is, between 10 and 11. I'm going to move 11 down to, you know, where PD radios was at 18. Just so we can get Daryl out of here. He's probably got some police calls to go to or something. You know, and you know, we're gonna do our best to get through some of this. I know some people live out of town, and we're gonna do our best to get you out here as soon as we can. All right, I like that one even better. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Next up, citizen comments on agenda items. No one's signed up. No citizens are present. We'll move on to number 5. Committee minutes. I have HLPC minutes for January 28th and February 1st. Any comments or questions on the committee minutes? Seeing none. Next up, number 6, department reports. Fire department report, police department report, treasurer's report, all for January of 2020. And I have a senior center report for December of 2019 and January of 2020. I was glad to see that the police department is now fully staffed, so I'm sure that's making life a little easier down at the police station. Any comments on this? All right. First up, number 7, we have review and discuss a resolution for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Alternatives Program TAP grant and application. And Matt Schreiber is up here. He'll be up here for the next 3 items. So go ahead when you're ready.
Sure. The council discussed this at the last meeting. I brought this forward. The one item that I didn't have at the last meeting was a draft resolution. Council advised that we should bring this back to this meeting with the draft resolution. City Attorney Johnson and City Administrator both took a look at this, and this is the draft resolution that we have before you. I would ask, as I said on the meeting on 4th, that we need a resolution by April 17th. So this is just the last step for our grant application for that grant.
Okay, thank you, Matt. The resolution is in the packet. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments on the resolution itself. And like Matt said, we do need to pass this by April 17th, so we do have a little time if there needs to be a little more review. But in my review of it, I didn't see anything that stood out that was an issue. Mayor Tome?
I have no issues with the resolution. Thanks for getting this to us. I think we can move it forward for approval. Just a note at the top of the resolution that this is a kind of an incremental grant or project, from my understanding, as Matt had talked about. It's 2020 through 2024 application, so
Correct.
it's not one single project that would happen.
No, well, it's
one project, but it's how it's put out.
It's funded over a 4-year period. So right now what they're doing is they're taking in grant applications, and it's scheduling fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. So they call it the TAP grant 2020 to 2024 because that's just the 4-year cycle they're in. I mean, technically, if we get awarded, we will also be in the grant cycle 2022 to 2026. So it's just how they word it, because they're always backfilling the last 2 years of their program cycle. So
thanks, man.
Yep.
Karina?
Oh, no, I was just confused looking at the part where it says the city is willing to accept up to 50% of the cost for the MLS grant.
Mm-hmm.
And then lower down for the TAP funding, local match for the grant is 20%. I was just confused on who's
So
who.
the city already applied for the MLS grant, and the city applied for the MLS grant for the same project in December of 2019. So when council went through that process, they said they were willing to take up to 50% a local share to basically make our grant application more competitive. So that, when I was talking about the MLS, that was a separate program. So when you're talking about down at the bottom, we're talking about 20%. That's the requirements for the TAP grant, which is different from the MLS. So the only reason I included that language just so I remind council of what they approved previously and when they applied for that MLS grant. Does that help?
It does. I'm still confused. Can we get more than one grant for the same project?
If we were awarded both, we would get to pick which one. I've already asked the program manager for the TAP program. I'm like, what would happen if we got both?
Okay.
And he said,
Probably not going to happen, but.
No, with the MLS, they had a lot of interest for that program. I mean, there's a $75 million program in the first year, and I think they had $1 billion worth of applications. So it's just, I think they're overwhelmed with the amount of applications they've gotten from what I've heard from some of my former colleagues at WISDOT, so.
Thank you, that clears it up.
Any other questions on this item? Everyone okay moving the resolution forward? Okay. Thanks, Matt, for that, and stick around. You're up there for number 8. Review and discuss application process for use of May Award Fund.
So this was another item that was at the February 4th agenda, or COW agenda. One of the things that came up was, what is a project sponsor? And if you look at page 2 of 4, I add a short paragraph just try to clarify who's a project sponsor. I try to leave it a little vague so there could be flexibility, but I did think an adult had to sign the application. And I was like, well, if you say 18, you're old enough to vote, or 21, you're old enough to drink. And I said, Dad, let's use 25, you're old enough to rent a car. Not really sure if that's the right number, but it was one of those things where if we're trying to find a responsible person to sign on behalf of a group that can lead us, I took that as a, I don't know, it just, to me, it seemed like the most reasonable age to define an adult. So that could change, but I defined it fairly, who can be a sponsor would be, any community organizations, a nonprofit organization, a youth development organization, so like Cub Scout, if they had like a leader, obviously they could sign. I said faith-based groups, and then, or volunteer groups that demonstrate the capability to complete the proposed project. So I think that gives us a little bit of, I think I remember both Michael and Trina at the last meeting kind of had comments on, you wanted to leave it a little more open, and then I think Michael wanted to see a little bit more of the, just spell it out what we mean by project sponsor. So hopefully this addresses both of those comments. And as I was working through that, I realized on page 3 on the application form that I never put a signature block, and I think that's a pretty big overstatement. So I added that. And the other thing I did was after looking at how I had the application form set up, I was trying to leave it as a page because I'm trying to keep it simple, but I left like 4 lines for narrative. And I realized, I'm like, you know what, why don't I just give them the option of submitting and attaching a document that will be up to a page that will explain what they're doing. I mean, it could be a paragraph, but it gives them more space to explain what their project is. So those were the changes that I've made. Any questions or comments?
I have a suggestion in language.
Sure.
With the 25-year-old thing. I didn't know that you had to be 25 to rent a car, by the way.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago for me. How about we strike the first line, and it says eligible project sponsors include community organizations, nonprofit organizations, youth development organizations, faith-based groups or volunteer groups, or individual that demonstrate the ability to complete the proposed project. Just take, yeah.
I agree with that. There's actually one of the comments that I was going to make, and specifically, if we look at the next agenda item, there is a 18 or 19-year-old Eagle Scout that's trying to do.
Well, I think he's 15.
Oh, he's,
I thought
maybe
Eric's
his brother.
Eric's still in high school, isn't he?
Eric's a senior.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so he's 18.
sorry.
17.
For some reason, I thought he was just a freshman or sophomore. Is what I thought. Whatever.
But
There's two of them.
My point is that most kids are gonna be involved in some sort of formalized organization, but if they're not, it's still open to a volunteer group or
Yeah.
individual that demonstrates the ability to complete the proposed project. You can find that on the application and ask the
Yeah.
questions and determine that right there.
Okay.
Leaves a lot of discretion then, I think.
I was gonna say, I'm not married to anything in that first, in what I proposed, so I'm
That's
open
my
to any
suggestion.
suggestions.
I like that suggestion. Trina?
Oh, I'm leaning towards leaving the project sponsors must have an adult sign the application form, but moving that to the bottom of the same paragraph. But not give a specific age.
Group or adult individual. Does that make sense?
Or,
I guess I'm talking
seven.
about the proposed language that I just put at the very end, to any, or volunteer group or adult individual that demonstrates the ability to complete the proposed project. Does that make sense? Legal adult?
yeah. Yeah, I would like to add that at the bottom of that paragraph. Strike the 25 years
first
old and
sentence.
move the first sentence to the last sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see, like, wanting that in, but, like, with the mayor's original thought, I really don't think it's necessary with the language that they have to demonstrate the ability to complete the proposed project. Personally, I don't care if they're 15 or 36, if they demonstrate the ability, it doesn't really matter what age they are. Like, and if they are a kid, they most likely aren't going to demonstrate the ability, so it doesn't matter.
But wouldn't it be nice if there was one that they could,
Mhm.
yep, yep, yep.
So, don't put adult in that last sentence then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
But-
I'm fine with that, just leaving it open, as long as there's discretion being made on the other side of things, that.
And we're
I
gonna
don't
be the
see-
ones reviewing.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct.
This council's gonna be the
Reviewing
ones
the-
reviewing the application, so.
Yeah.
Correct.
I trust that, we or whoever's up here can make that decision.
I agree.
Assume that the city attorney would not let us get into a contractual situation with a 15-year-old. That So I like the discretion because it's open to everybody then.
Matt, I had a question under budget process.
Mm-hmm.
It says the city will identify projects in the fall of each year to develop the program budget. Projects will be selected for the program budget based on the availability of funding and the level of commitment by a project sponsor. I guess what I'm gonna ask is there any way that, are we gonna still, can we put it in the guidelines that the city will still should be contributing to this Mayward Fund annually? Like we did this year in $500, like put some type of.
Well, that obviously would be left up to the council, and in what form that comes in, whether it's council making a contribution from the general fund, or the tourism commission making a contribution from their funds, or both in some instances. I think that's, I guess, up for debate.
I think the city should annually still contribute. I guess I don't know if that's, I guess it should be in the guidelines if we're gonna sustain this program. I think we should have a method in there annually that replenishes some money. Trina?
Oh, yeah, I'll go with that first. I would also like to see the city being responsible and putting the money out there and showing that it cares about the small projects and community involvement. It's not a lot of money, but a lot of harmony could come from it. Oh, and I wanted to go back to the other parts. I'm kind of agreeing with Tome that maybe it should be volunteer groups or individuals under the section we were just talking about beforehand. Because it sounds like all groups.
Or individual, okay. So faith-based groups, volunteer groups, or individuals that demonstrate the ability to complete the proposed project. I like that. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. And then on your application itself, Matt, just, there's a typo there on the first bullet point.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, ideally, they may be using that tool.
Yeah, well, correct.
Certain projects.
Man.
That's why you get,
Not my-
you have 7 second sets of eyes. It's always a good thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Ed, have you
It-
reviewed this properly and given it the once over?
He usually
I know.
he usually emails me after the meeting.
Oh, okay.
No, but
Okay.
the other thing I would note is that I do have a few projects that you might get an application on this here shortly. Now that this is kind of approved, I assume this needs to go to the council for formal approval at the next meeting. So let me ask you this: can I submit an application at the next COW meeting, or should I wait till? So it would be not the March 3rd meeting, the March 16th meeting, or does it matter?
You can submit it. If it doesn't get passed in the first meeting, then we just table it
Okay,
on the committee
yeah,
of the
that
whole.
works. Okay.
So did we land anywhere on maybe putting something in the guidelines that the city will fund this through the budget process, not based off project, but giving it an annual stipend? Trina?
Oh, I would be in support of that.
Mayor Tom?
I support that, but I don't know that you can force anybody to do that. I think that Matt's doing a great job of trying to start a program here. And there may be, like he mentioned, Tourism Commission, there may be other sources of funding for this, and I think it's up to the staff member that's supporting this process, and that hopefully he will come to future councils and find funding where available. And I think he will do that while he's here.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you can write something in the policy to force you to put money into a fund, because the May Ward Fund is a fund. We just decided to put more money into it. I think what Matt's trying to do here is to get the community to be aware that this is a fund where we can attract donations, and the community can help support this as well, along with the city.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't want it to turn into is that we don't get any support from the city, and we're just putting money into the account and then trying to work with people to do these projects when we could just do it all internally if we're supplying all the funding. I think the idea is leverage. But I just don't know that you can put language in there to force anybody to do it.
My hope is that in the future, when we get donations like we did from Mr. Grow that started the banner in the downtown beautification, that it would go into this fund in the future. And having this framework to basically show we're going to be using these funds in a responsible way, in my hope, down the road attracts more of those donations, so we can do those projects without always having to ask for donations. It's just we have the money available. So that was my thinking. That's why I've always been bringing this back after that project that we completed last summer. So
I agree. It's a landing space for the funds.
Okay. Katie?
I guess I don't think you necessarily have to write in there, we're gonna give a specific dollar amount every year. I think that maybe you could just write something as a guideline. I think it says May Ward Fund guidelines. It's not a policy. It's not saying, the city must contribute, but it is recommended the city contributes. And I guess I also had a question for you, Matt. Were you still planning on, I remember, I don't know how many times ago, I mean, we've talked about the May Ward Fund quite a few times, but are you still planning on sort of advertising this in May?
that would be the goal.
Okay.
I mean, it just makes sense with it being, the Red Bud.
And you still
days.
haven't found May Ward?
At this point, I honestly, I have not given it much more. It's every time I've tried to find out who May Ward was or why she created this fund, it's kind of led to a dead end. So, if anybody knows, randomly watching, call me. I'd love to know. It'd be great. But all I know is we have this fund, and I want to best utilize it. So.
Okay. So kind of coinciding with Red Bud Days.
Yeah.
I'm not against putting something in there, just suggesting that the city is also donating to this. It's not saying that, we're not expecting hopefully other contributions from the community. But I think it just kind of throws it out there that, hey, the city is investing in this as well.
Trina?
Yeah, I would really like to add into the guideline that the city perhaps plans to add 500 to the fund every year. I mean, I know we can't twist anyone's arm or force any donations, but for me, it just shows, good leading by example, that the city's willing to just, chip in a little bit every year and hope it comes back, tenfold.
Can we just put a line in under education and fundraising, Matt, to basically reflect that, just to say, I guess I can't find the wording I'm looking for. We're talking about how we're going to promote this fund, but we're not really talking about the fundraising part of it. But I think that there's a way that you could put language in that says, the city would be encouraged, or what we're not even talking about in here is that we have already done that. We have contributed as a council in the last couple of years to put funding in there. Maybe just by putting that in there, it shows that the city's trying to support it and would like to continue doing that. But there's nothing in here about us putting money into that fund.
Actually, there is.
Is there?
When you reminded me of that section, I went back and reread it. So middle paragraph says, to kick off the fundraising effort, the city of Columbus should make a contribution. I use the should rather than shall. So
where's that at?
It's not mandatory.
Which paragraph?
On page 1, under education and fundraising, basically that the city putting $500 in the May Ward Fund essentially kicks it off. So, you can make a big deal about it every year. Probably, I guess, at the second council meeting, you'd do it, because then that would lead right into May. As I said, I put a should rather than a shall, because I know it's always up to the discretion of the council, but that was my thinking when I put that in there.
Yep.
Well, thanks for wrapping that up in a nice bow for us.
Sorry, it took me a while to forget that to remember I put that in there.
Yeah,
so.
and I was focused on the budget part. I was in the budget process, so I kind of got stuck there, so. Okay. Any other questions on this item? Matt, do you feel good with the information you've gotten?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Couple of small.
It'll be fixed before the next meeting.
All right, move that forward and review Matt's work one more time at the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll move that forward. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, next up, number 9, review and discuss project for lands near the wastewater treatment plant.
All right, so I know this is worded a little vaguely. This is kind of the same language that was used previously. This was on the COW for discussion in, I think it was the 2 August meetings in September of 2019. Essentially, this is the area just to the north of the wastewater treatment plant. There's been discussion on putting a recreational area on that 3.8 acres that's just north of the wastewater treatment plant. It's kind of been in limbo. Basically, Patrick was handling this. Obviously, when he departed in October, it's just kind of been hanging out there. There's been a variety of things that have held it up, but right now, it's now, I guess, on my plate. And one of the things I just wanted to do before we hopefully finalize this spring yet is just to kind of go through a list of next steps and milestones. I put together a little timeline. One of the big things we need to do is essentially there was an access deed that was very vague. both the city and the Senhen Dairy LLC had decided it would be best, we'd be better off by essentially re-establishing the access easement and creating a new one. So we're going through that process. I'm hoping that in March, at the 2 March meetings, we'll have something. I know I've talked with Rupert Milkey. They're going to be going out and doing the survey work for us. They are going to be coming out in March and trying to do it piggyback on another trip, so it's not costing us as much money. So it's kind of, so there might not be as, all the details might not be there on the March 3rd meeting, but you'll at least have a draft, and the draft will show what it will look like with a legal description. And then hopefully after the 17th meeting, we can have that recorded. The other thing is an MOU with C.O.W. Dairy. I would think that that could go on the same time frame of the March 3rd and March 17th meeting. I know we've already had discussions with C.O.W. and his attorney. Then this is something that could change. The MOU with Oddfellows, that could go on the 3rd and 17th. I just kind of offset it just a little bit, just in case we do have any issues. And then the last thing is developing, I guess, a site plan for the area. Just trying to figure out, there's 1 acre there that we are going to be, that's going to be part of the MOU with the Oddfellows for the butterfly garden. So that means there's 2.8 acres that's left over that we don't really have any plan for right now. So we're trying to figure out what do we plan in there so it's low maintenance, what other uses would we allow down there, what do we name it, and then once we have all that, then we can work with Eric, who I guess is older than I thought, to help us with his Eagle Scout project, and hopefully we can have that in place by the end of April so he can complete his Eagle Scout project in May. So that's kind of the time frame I came up with based off of the steps that we needed to follow. One thing I would note, that we've talked about this at development team a couple of times, and we need to be careful, and Paul can jump in here if you would like. We need to be careful about how we designate the park, because if we dedicate that and then we need that for a future plant expansion, wastewater treatment plant expansion, that might limit our ability to do so. So we were after some discussion, we thought that that land was originally purchased to accommodate a future wastewater treatment plant expansion. So we need to be cognizant of that when we're naming this park and how we're going by the means of actually forming the park. So with that, I've actually had Paul put some language into the access agreement. I think we're probably going to put something in the MOU as well, basically stating that, just acknowledging that fact. I mean, we may never need it, but we don't want to, take away a path that we might need in the future. So, any questions on the timeline? This is just to kind of get us organized. I'm hoping, obviously, to work these through the next 3 or 4 meetings.
Ed?
Have we ever determined whether this is C.O.W.'s only access to the land on the other side of the river, or do they have the ability to get to that land easily off a road on the other side of the river? Has it been determined?
I can tell you from looking at the aerial photos, I've looked at this, yeah, the only way they can get to their property right now is through this crossing. They could attempt to get an easement from another property holder to get to their property, but right now, this is the only way they can reach their property. So, yes. I don't think they'd be concerned if they could get to their property from a street.
Well, other than it's much more convenient to
Well,
go
yeah.
this way, and that's why I'm wondering, I want to make sure that we're not giving away something that's merely a convenience, but they are landlocked currently otherwise.
For those parcels on the other side of the river, yes.
Very good, thank you.
The actual language, they actually do have a formal written easement in place from 1985. And the city gave Senhen an easement at that time, and the actual language says, access easement for driveway purposes approximately 20 feet in width, extending from River Road to the Crawfish River across the grantor's land, which is Columbus, at a convenient location to be agreed upon by the grantor and the grantees. So that's how vague or definite it is right now. And convenient location that's the best description of this 20-foot strip.
And just to build off of that, we are gonna put the easement where the driveway is now. After talking with John Namer, he recommended that made the most sense for that parcel, and that's essentially what Centview would like. It's just the simplest way to do it. So that's where the easement will be, if you're wondering.
Sounds like it wasn't really defined in there, but I like the word convenient because of the thing you just talked about, is that if there needed to be an expansion on site in the future, and it's not convenient for us to have that easement located there, that we could or would have the ability to move that easement somewhere on the property. So I'm sure you've already thought about that, though.
Well, that particular idea and clause in the easement agreement has been taken in, has been put in and taken out, and now we'll go back in. Because as we have been working through this with the Senhen family.
Okay. Appreciate that. As far as the comment you had made too before about not, should not create the recreational area in a manner that would limit the city if this property were needed for future wastewater treatment plant expansion. I think one of the motivators for me on that property since I've been up here is, I've been to the wastewater treatment plant to visit John several times. It's right on the Crawfish River. It's, a public piece of land the city owns, but we're also working through the water quality trading program and all the phosphorus reduction. So I think this is an educational tool for the community that we can use, for the schools or anything else. But having that focus in what we're doing, I think will always, I guess, tell us why we did it in the first place. We're trying to get people down to the river to understand why we're trying to educate people on what we're participating in as a city with the wastewater treatment plant and our responsibility to the river. So
yeah, and I should note that there's always going to be a recreational opportunity there, because you can walk behind the wastewater treatment plant as it exists now, and if we had a trail back there, it is actually. If you turn around, you notice the plant, but when you're back there, it's actually pretty scenic. So I think there's a recreational opportunity, whether or not the plant expands or not. I think there's always going to be a use for recreation down by the river on this property. So, anyways,
Any more questions for Matt on this? There's a timeline here, and we'll be working through that over the next several weeks, and we'll see this come back a few times, it looks like. So unless there's any questions, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Matt. Next up, number 10, review and discuss the water quality draft agreements with Roads Bacon Serve, Stib Farms, and Wisconsin Conference. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Well, you guys get me tonight. Maureen from our company, who's been working on this with the landowners and the county, because the roads kind of decided to take the night off. She did give me a bunch of talking points, and I'm familiar enough with it. I was hoping to at least answer your questions. We felt it was important to keep on the agenda tonight, just because obviously a lot of these implementation features that part of these agreements need to go in with the spring planting. So, as we kind of look forward, hoping to some warmer weather coming up in the next month or so, we're going to be thinking about those type of things. So, there are 3 agreements here tonight for consideration, and I think maybe I'll just take each one of them independently in here and talk about it. I will preface that all of these agreements have been reviewed by Paul at this point, and he's provided his feedback. And I know that the county has reviewed them, and obviously our staff has reviewed them as well. And so if there are anything that come up tonight for questions, and either Paul or I can't answer it tonight, I'll be happy more than happy to take your questions tonight. And Maureen said she would certainly be in attendance at the next meeting if this would be moved forward for consideration, whether that be at the COW or at the regular meeting. We are hoping, obviously, to move these forward because there's been a lot of negotiation that's been going on with costs and improvement features and things along the way. So I think we're in a good spot with these agreements. I think it's more getting the language set and making sure that you guys are comfortable with moving these forward. So with that, I will take the first one, the Wisconsin Conference contract or agreement. That was reviewed by the Wisconsin Conference on February 26th, and they had an executive committee meeting on February 12th. Excuse me. What we decided to do with that one is because their executive committee only meets once a quarter, we actually had them consider this agreement before it came to you to get some of their feedback because we felt like it was in a form that we were close. And so they did meet on the agreement, and they really just had one point of negotiation. They wanted some language in here to stipulate that if the city should terminate this agreement at any point, that they didn't want to pay back the installation costs. They obviously have their farmer has costs for the installation of those improvements, and they realize obviously that they don't want to be liable for that, assuming if the city would terminate the agreement for such reason going forward, which I think makes sense that, you know, the city is the one that's requesting the improvements be installed anyways. And I would think that we would terminate the agreement at such point that, you know, anything that would have to go would be terminated before it was planted or something in advance. And I think we would know that if we would get to that point. The only thing that would lead me to believe that we would have to terminate or renegotiate a contract is if we had another opportunity out there that could substitute. Obviously, we have to have so many credits, and these 3 agreements get us to that credit that we need. So if we would cancel one of these agreements, we'd have to have something to offset that or supplement it. So again, I think there's some ways that that could happen, but they just didn't want to be on the hook for some costs that weren't being paid through the city to their farmer. So again, I didn't see any particular issue with that from an engineering standpoint. They also wanted a map just to kind of clarify a little bit more clear in the agreement, which is fine. That seemed to be pretty simple. And then as far as a time frame, they would like to have the agreement in place by the 15th of April. So, which would mean we'd have to move it forward, and I guess at the 16th have the final approval of that agreement, so we could get it to them and have the sign-offs take place, so the farmer renting their land can prepare and be ready for his planting season. With that being said, they said that they were more than happy with the agreement and had no other objections to it. So I know this is the first time you guys are taking a look at it from your packet, and so again, based off what Paul has reviewed and what we've reviewed and discussed with the county and negotiated, you know, we felt like it was you know, pretty minor feedback from our standpoint, but certainly if you have any questions, let me know.
Go ahead.
Page 6, is it coal-less or cow-less?
Up
on top, it's coal-less, and on the bottom, it's cow-less.
Okay, so it's just the name of the company. We'll verify that.
No, they're out of order in the packet, Ed. It's Wisconsin, I think that one is.
It's, yeah, I see what Ed's saying. On page 6, there's a spelling discrepancy on the name of the limited liability company, so we'll clarify which one it is.
Thank you.
Right, that's roads vacancy.
Coal-less makes sense, and it's coal-less the majority of times.
Yeah, we're talking about Wisconsin.
All right,
Conference.
then they're out of order in my.
They are, that's what I was saying, they're out of order.
All right, which one is that?
The last one. That's what I had.
Okay, then on that one, it's at the top, it's Wisconsin Corporation of Seventh-day Adventists, and in the second signature block, it's Wisconsin Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. So there's a.
Okay, duly noted.
So,
You got it, Ed. Thanks, Ed.
And we'll check that throughout the whole agreement too, just to make sure.
He's working ahead. Okay, any other questions on the Wisconsin conference one? Okay, we'll make that change. Which one are you gonna tackle next, STIB or roads?
Let's do the
or
bacon
Council?
serve.
Okay.
And I'm only taking these in order of what Maureen gave me of my talking points, so.
It's okay.
So on the bacon serve agreement, she basically said this is in draft form. It's been reviewed by, again, the same parties, the city and Attorney Johnson. This has not gone to Wisconsin Conference. Now, the items in the agreement have been ran by them, so they're familiar with the costs and the practices being implemented, but the actual agreement hasn't been before them yet. So at this point, we were just looking for any feedback from the city. Now, this is the same as the Wisconsin Conference agreement, again, just structure-wise, except for the practices and the dollar amounts are different. So we feel like, it's kind of a base agreement that we're just going to use kind of across all the parties. Hopefully, everybody agrees in concept to it and it makes it kind of simple to administer if all the contracts are very similar. Obviously, the practices and dollars will change. So she basically said that it is the same farmer here at Rhodes as in Wisconsin Conference, so he's familiar again with all the practices and dollars, and timelines kind of apply here too. So in concept, the farmer is in agreement with everything as well. So we just have to make sure that this gets to their legal corporation, and they have a chance to review it and have any clarifications or comments as well. But I guess with your blessing, moving this forward, we can certainly get that in their hands and get some feedback, hopefully, from them before, we get this back again in front of you guys. So, if there's any, and I think, Ed, I did obviously mark down your comment here on page 6. If there's any other comments that anybody caught on that agreement, I'm more than happy to follow up with. So,
Comparing and contrasting the two page 6s, there's a total of 4 signature blocks, and on the one on the Wisconsin Conference does not have a date on the final signature block. I'm curious as to why that doesn't. But to me, it's an inconsistency, but maybe there's a logical reason.
all right, we'll just double check. And again, I think the idea is here to kind of have a boilerplate, so I'm assuming they should all look very similar.
Okay, any other questions on that one? Okay, STIB?
All right, STIB. STIB is going to be much similar here. Has not gone to STIB. Everybody internally has reviewed it. Attorney Johnson has reviewed this one. Language is the same as the previous 2 dollar amounts, except the practice, or previous 2 agreements, except for the practice and dollar amounts. This is directly with one of the landowners or farmers, so it's not through a corporation. I don't think there was anything else that Maureen had notes on that one again. So if there's some logistics in the agreement, I can certainly follow up on that. If anybody has any questions, otherwise we'd like to get that out and get reviewed by that owner as well.
Ed?
Just curious why there's not a 4th signature block on page 6.
For STIB? Because STIB is just the one guy.
Right. That would be my guess on that one.
Well, as far as we know, anyway. Well, it's
fine.
It's a limited liability. It's a limited liability company, which is usually set up for one signature.
Okay.
As an
Great.
authorized member.
Thank you.
One point of substantive difference for the STIB agreement, I think this is only 5 years as opposed to the other 2, which are 10. At least that's how I remember it. Right. Yeah, because I thought that that STIB was only for 5 years.
Yeah, I recall that too.
Is everybody comfortable with was that a request, do you remember, Paul, by the farmer himself?
I do not, yeah, I do not remember if the farmer requested that, but at the top of page 2, it references 5 years.
Okay. Let me just check with Maureen on that.
Yeah.
I want to say that was a request from him.
In this table 11, it says 10, which is what Ian was looking at, I think.
Which bullet point or which number is that?
Bottom of page 3. That table on the bottom of page 3 says 10, but everywhere else it says 5.
Okay. All right.
Do we wanna bring that back to the committee to hold a review one more time, or are we good with, final review at the regular meeting?
Final review.
Is that good with everybody? Mike, you good with that? Final review at the regular meeting.
One question I have, Jason, I saw an email today, kind of last minute come out. I don't know if it had something to do between the county and Maureen about the modeling used or something. I don't know if that's going to change any of this drastically, or it doesn't, or if it has a little effect.
I'm actually proud of myself. I have the answer for this. As I was driving over here today and Maureen was prepping me, I asked that very same question. The DNR had sent an email back that basically said that they were fine in concept with all of the agreements between the landowners and the city and what the county's been brokering. And they said that there was some additional modeling or changes to the modeling that they were looking for. And so I asked Maureen, is that something that is substantial on our end that we have to go back, and is that going to change any of the negotiations that's occurred? And Maureen told me that all of the modeling that has been done is what the DNR is looking for. It's just, we've provided them with a piece of the modeling. They just need additional output from that model. So Maureen said it shouldn't change anything, it's just they're looking for additional information, and she said, we'll just provide that out of the model that we have. She said we don't have to remodel, or that shouldn't change anything at this point. So it sounded like it was just some missing information that they were looking for, but it didn't have a bearing on what we were doing here, so.
Thank you for having an answer.
Yeah.
I have no concerns, because when I didn't really get a chance to dig into that, but just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to slow things down a bit.
Well, and
so.
to be frankly honest with you, I ask it from the standpoint of, we'll have a task order coming forward for all the water quality negotiation and implementation for 2020, and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't additional fees for us as well in there, where we'd have to go back and remodel and renegotiate these contracts and spend additional time on it as well. And she reassured me that that shouldn't be the case, so.
Excellent, thanks.
Yep.
Anything else?
Are you comfortable with us making these cleanups to the agreements and sending them out to the parties for review?
Council? Yeah.
Then nothing binding at this point, but just to get their feedback.
Yeah. Good with me. Thanks,
Thank you
Jason.
very much.
Yeah, right, next regular meeting. Okay. Next up, we're gonna, like I said, move this around a little bit. I'm gonna have Sergeant Ward here. We have to review and discuss the purchase of the PD radios. It's number 18. This was something we've seen a few times. We passed we just forward a resolution to the next regular meeting for. No, we just approved that. Sorry, it's been a long night. This was in that resolution. Sergeant Ward Lieutenant Ward, I'm sorry, is here to answer any questions you guys might have. Looks like the radio project, the quotes and estimates going to end up being $56,275.57. Questions for Lieutenant Ward? I'm sorry. Anybody? I'll get it. There's the button. Mike, you got something?
I would like just a more general understanding of the radios. When Dennis kind of brought this forth for the first time, I was a little surprised because he had said that the Columbia County was going to digital encryption, which I understand that's a technology upgrade, but he'd also made the comment that we really hadn't been communicating with the county with our old radios, or that wasn't something we'd been doing a lot. So I just need to know more about how the radios are used. As a technology, you can have radios in the cars and then also carry radios. So will each officer have 2 radios, or is there 1 radio? I don't understand how any of this stuff works. So just a general
So
overview.
my best guess is that was probably just a misunderstanding.
Okay.
It's not that we don't communicate or can't communicate. It's that once they go to this digital and encryption, the current squad radios are not capable of being upgraded to digital. And our current portable radios may be compatible, but they are 10 to 12 years old, well past their useful life, and are no longer supported by Motorola. So we do communicate to the county on a daily basis. They are our dispatch. So the squad radios are essentially if the officers in the car, if they're driving around, when they're calling out traffic stops, checking out at houses for calls, whatever that may be. The squad radio, the portable radios are the actual line of communication when they're out of the car. So the quote calls for 5 squad radios, 1 for each of our current patrol vehicles, and 10 portables. Each officer is issued a portable, and then 1 base radio. The base radio is the necessity for the office. With the metal roof, we don't have the reception capability with our portable radios. So we actually, I believe it was a couple of years ago, had to install an exterior antenna just to gain that accessibility while in the office. So this proposal will replace all the portables to give us the ability to go to the digital encryption, all of the squad radios to go to the digital encryption, as well as the base radio for the office.
And are all agencies following this new digital encryption moving forward, or trying to, or have already, or?
Any agency that's in Columbia County is going to have to follow it.
Okay.
The only question that we haven't quite had answered yet is how fast. The sheriff's office channel, which is the primary F1 channel, is what it is in our radios, is going to encryption sometime in May, I've been told. The municipal channels are sometime after that, but we haven't gotten an official date. One of the goals of trying to get this passed tonight, hopefully, is if we can get the radios in about the same time frame as the squads, that could potentially save us some money on the installation costs. So the actual cost may be a little lower, but it would also build in a little bit of a buffer in case there's an extra additional install cost at the office, or any type of programming cost that we're unaware of right now. So it could save us some money in the long run if we can get those in the same time frame. Baycom, which is the dealer out of Madison that we would be getting the radios through, have given me a rough quote of 4 to 6 weeks from the placement of the order to the arrival of the radios, another week to 2 weeks for the programming, and then they would show up to us. We'd be looking at, if you round up, roughly 2 months from time of order to actual time of being able to install.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Lieutenant?
Yep.
Sorry, a question. What is the 2 siren controllers? What is that about? Like, is that a part of the radios?
It is. That's part
Okay.
of the squad radios. So the new cars that we currently have, so the 17s and the 19s, already have these controllers installed in. That's why we only need 2 additional. The 14 and the Chief's car do not have that controller in them. The old Motorola radios that we have, which are no longer compatible with the digital and the encryption that's coming, have a siren controller that's built into them. It was part of the radio when we purchased it. So when we replace them with the new radios, we have to get the siren controllers to be able to control the other peripheral equipment that goes along with it.
Okay. Trina?
Oh, I was just trying to remember if the new radios have both the digital and an analog component. I was just wondering how it's going to go for the switchover. Are you going to receive the equipment and then wait to install it until the county installs there? How is that going to work?
Part of that is going to be working with the county to try to time that appropriately. Best answer is I don't have a good answer because we don't have exact time frames yet. What we would potentially be able to do, and then we can figure out the budgeting as far as the police department and later would be to program them for the digital for the county, which we know is coming about May, keep it analog for the municipal channels, and then just have them reprogrammed again for the other digital portion of it once that change is made.
That sounds good, so that they can be installed and then reprogrammed when needed.
Correct. So
Okay.
the radios are analog compatible, so that's not the issue. The issue that we have is that the current radios we do have are not digital compatible. So we can go essentially backwards with the new ones, but we can't go forward with the old ones.
Any other questions, comments? Okay to move this forward to the next regular meeting? Mike?
Just one question, are you auctioning off all the old stuff? Does the old stuff have any value, or is it usable, or what's the plan with the
That
old?
I don't know.
Okay.
My guess is that no police agency would purchase them. We may be able to do like a Wisconsin auction or something like that. But Dane County switched to digital years ago, so we haven't been able to receive them. State Patrol went digital years ago, so we haven't been able to listen to them. So it's where things are going, but whether or not like some of the ham radio operators or somebody might want to purchase them,
Okay,
that I don't know, but we could certainly try to list them.
okay, all right, thanks, Daryl.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I move to the next time, I want to ask Kim Manley, are you going to be for the last item tonight? Are you going to be here for those closed sessions? Okay. I was going to move you up otherwise. Okay, next up, number, where am I? 11? No, 12. Discussion of possible grant application for removal of UD Dam. Alder Gray has requested this review and discussion of the city potentially submitting a grant application for the removal of the UD Dam. Ian, your floor is yours.
So basically, just need to see if the council would support doing it, because it's something that has to be done immediately in order to make the deadline of the grant application. So kind of wanted to see what everyone's opinion is on it. Everyone knows my opinion. The dam needs to go. It worsens our flooding issues. It has absolutely no real value. It will never have any potential value. There's nothing that can be done positive with the dam. And it floods homes. So if we can get a grant to get rid of it, makes sense to get rid of it.
Can you tell me more about the grant? Or what do you know about the grant? Okay.
Have to get on it very quickly.
Thoughts, anyone? I did notice it says project has to be bid within 90 days of the approval, so and they do the awards in June, so we would have to have project out to bid within the next 2 weeks, which I don't know.
No, not out to bid.
That's not what it means?
No.
No, I think the only time, I'm just looking at Jason's email.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to decipher
Yeah.
what that meant, I guess.
The only timeline that you have right now is to get your application in by the end of February, basically by the 28th. And then after that, it's a matter of if you're accepted, then all those other timelines will come into play. And if you're not accepted, then it doesn't matter.
Oh, Ian, do you have something else?
Oh,
Ed?
I guess I have a question whether homeowners, landowners would be negatively impacted in their minds, whether accurately or not, but would this have a effect on people's property such that people affected by this might want to weigh in on whether we remove the dam?
I'm excited to see the amounts and that there is a grant program. This is something I would love to look into for most likely for next year. And I would want to have some community meetings to get some inputs on the feeling. And I would also want to have an official DNR type report that this would be a good idea. I mean, I think it probably is, but I want some expertise.
Katie?
Yeah, I agree with Trina. I was basically going to say something very similar to that. And I know I had been told before that there was an Army Corps of Engineers study. I know that people have tried digging around for that and to no avail, but I don't doubt that we need to do some reevaluating and see sort of what the impact would be on homeowners above the dam and below. So I like your idea for getting community input, and if we can help the flooding issues, you know, I'm certainly on board, but I also don't want to hurt anything in the process, so I just want to be sure. I think it's something that's good to have on our radar, and good to I'm just glad, you know, you brought it up that there is a program to grant us help with this if we should need it. So thanks for that. I don't think it should happen this year. I think that would be kind of rushing it through, and I think a lot of residents would deserve a lot of just notice that this kind of thing is happening, and I think that we have a responsibility to also make sure that we are doing the right thing for the residents.
Thanks, Katie. Ian?
So, I mean, one thing to ease your mind, it wouldn't be approved if it wasn't beneficial. If we apply for this grant and it's not something we should be doing, it's not like we're going to get the grant. Like, this is applying to get a grant, not ripping down the dam right now. Like, this is us seeking money. We would still be, it's going to be sometime before they would approve it or not. It would be another 3 months before, like, anything, bidding would even get into play. Like, this is not tomorrow that the dam's getting ripped down, or even saying that the dam's getting ripped down or removed. This is us applying for money to be able to do it. This is not doing it. And if it's not logical to do it, we wouldn't get the grant to begin with. Like, so that's just, in my mind, a non-concern. And I could potentially see some residents maybe objecting, but I mean, 99% of the residents on Hibbard Street didn't want a sidewalk, and the council decided to put in a sidewalk. This has a greater impact than a sidewalk. This floods people's homes. This is a larger issue than a sidewalk. Like, if the people on a street don't want a sidewalk and you put in a sidewalk, if someone that lives on the river wants the dam to stay there, you can't logically keep the dam there. Like, I understand wanting input, but this isn't recommended.
Ed?
I just, and I agree that I think potentially logically it behooves us to remove the dam. I would just, I've heard about this elusive Army Corps of Engineers study. I'd like either a greater search to see if we can find that, or contact the Army Corps of Engineers. I have a feeling they might keep copies of the studies that they issue, and maybe there's a process. I would not want to necessarily apply for a grant and then say, oops, we changed our mind, because we haven't worked this through fast enough by having the community engagement process, and then after we have the community engagement process saying, okay, now we're ready to apply for the dam again. This time once more with feeling, this time we mean it. Also, part of the complaint of the Hibbard people that I was sensitive to was that they didn't get enough notice. And I, again, even though it's merely applying for it and something that we can change our mind on if it doesn't, or if the study comes out wrong, made a point of telling the Hayward Street people that I feel that we did not, that I would like to see us improve our community engagement advance warning. And although I personally think, like you, that this dam probably should go, I'm not an engineer, and I do think that we owe it to the people affected to find this elusive study and engage them. My understanding is this was a hot button topic several years ago, and I think we owe them some advance notice.
Does any staff, do you remember when did they redo the dam? It's like, I think it was like 06, maybe. No. Or, I lived here, or had just moved here.
I have some files in my office. They are not the Army Corps of Engineer report. It's more the RFPs and the documents when they rebuilt the dam. When you look at the aerial photos using Google Earth, it was out from roughly 2006 to 2010-ish. So somewhere between 2012 and 2014 from aerial photos, you could tell the dam was rebuilt. So, but as I said, I have not been able to find the Army Corps of Engineer report anywhere in City Hall. And granted, that being said, I haven't like dug through the basement and all the other places where it could be. But I have found some files. They're at my office. But as I said, they're mainly RFPs and the when they rebuilt the dam documents from that era. So that's all I know. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
So, if I could jump in again. So for whatever reason, relatively recently, a decision was made to rebuild the dam. I don't know what that was based upon, but I gather some people put some thought into that. And if there is a study out there, or if there should be a future study, I think we should need some sort of expert opinion before we tear out something that apparently within the past 10 years it was decided to rebuild. I can sit here and think, that's stupid, this should be gone. But I think both for the people that would be affected, as well as it was decided to be rebuilt in the relatively recent past, I also don't think you should do something of this major without somebody other than us council members saying, well, it makes sense to me, tear it out, that we should have some sort of expert opinion. And that's why I'm hesitant to move forward with seeking a grant application that we then might have to say, we changed our mind.
And so, again, I would like to point out that this is from the DNR. The DNR is not going to grant us money to remove a dam that would not be beneficial. We will not get the grant if this is not beneficial. The DNR is an expert.
Katrina?
Oh, yeah, I'm still with Ed. I still want to get our ducks in a row before applying for a grant. I feel like it would just look so foolish to do otherwise. And I don't see how it would be possible for us to even get all of our paperwork together before the end of the month.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to know more about the history of the dam. I was just trying to read an article about it. Why, yeah, I think, I don't want to move too fast. I agree with Ian. Something needs to be done. But I need more information. I'm not going to support applying for a grant for a dam removal without any information. I have no supporting documents in the packet about this. I have no idea what the grant application is about. I have nothing, so I'm not comfortable doing anything else until I have more information. Katie?
I was just curious, and Jason's not here, but as far as Ian's point, saying the DNR is, they're responsible for that kind of thing. Now, so do they come in and do a study? I don't know.
That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
I would imagine. I don't know what that process process looks like. But I would imagine there's got to be some sort of work done on our end, on the front side of things, before you apply, I would assume.
I was expecting more information. So, I was expecting more information to be available. Mayor Tolman?
Basically tried to ask Jason some questions. I think his email contains a lot of the basic information here, but my understanding is the applications are on a first come, first served basis. That's what Jason told me also. If the applications are due at the end of February, I think there's a, I don't know if this is an annual or a biannual budget for this dam program, but it's always there. It's not a new grant by any means. I think, I mean, I've heard plenty of things, rumors, but it's largely, I think the DNR would like to get rid of as many dams as it could, regardless of whether it affects our flooding or not. I think as far as the health of the river, the DNR likes to see less dams. That's just an assumption on my part. The point being is there's a very stringent timeline to us get an application in for this cycle, and if they are awarded, or if they're looked at on the first come, first served basis, our application may not even get looked at this round, rather than, I think, looking at this from a more proactive stance of getting the community feedback and getting the information in the study. I think what we want to do is see a model of our floodplain, our FEMA maps, to see if we pull the dam out and it improves that or doesn't change it at all. And I don't have that answer, and maybe that discussion happened when they decided to save the dam, but I don't know any of that information. I know that the city struggled with this issue for quite a few years before I was really paying attention to politics in the city, and I lived here then, but I know it was very contentious. I mean, to assume that most people are going to be in favor of it, I think there may be a perception from the people that live along the river that they have waterfront property, and you take the dam out and that's not waterfront property anymore. I'm sure that had some politics or political leverage on the decision that the council made at that time. So if we're going to go down a path like this, I would definitely want to be armed with all the data and information that I can have to support a decision. I think that this is an issue in my mind, that I can tuck into the roadmap project to consider looking long-term at that, and if that's something that's going to help improve the flooding in Columbus in the long term, that's something I would support looking at. But I think doing this kind of in a very last-minute reactionary manner. There's a snowstorm tonight, but I'm certain that people saw this agenda item and they have an opinion about it, and they're going to want to talk to us about it, whether that opinion is valid or not. This will be a contentious issue when we decide to tackle it. But I'm fine with considering it in the future, but trying to submit a grant for the 28th, I think, is just not going to happen. We need to learn a lot more about this entire proposition.
Any other comments or questions? Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't think that we would get this in time. I was shocked when applying for the grant was what the agenda item was, to be honest. But mostly it's something that we have to actually consider and move forward with. This is something that could greatly benefit our residents. Like, flooding is a major issue in Columbus. It will become a larger issue unless you believe that climate change isn't real. This isn't going away. And if we can potentially lessen the impact, then we need to do it. This is something that when it's been brought up to my attention, everybody that I talk to, they say, yeah, I knew about that. Yeah, that's this. But why? But it's never been brought up or on an agenda for any recent past that I've ever seen. That's my main thing. We need to actually make this happen and do something. Is all I wanted.
What were you expecting the agenda item to read, because you didn't email the city council president anything about this? So I have a fourth string email here that I had to come up with an agenda item title, and I'm reading your first sentence. If it's possible to get an application in for this or any other grants, that would be awesome. I had no idea what else to name it. So in the future, if you have an agenda item you'd like on
Yeah.
the city council agenda, I would recommend emailing
Well,
the
and
city
I was
council
never-
president or anyone else that would,
Right.
and the mayor.
I was never actually told that it was going to be on the agenda at all until, like, so I apologize for that. That was more of an email chain back and forth, so that's, I can take responsibility for that if you want, but I had no idea that it was even going to happen.
It was brought up to me that you contacted the mayor asking for this to be on the agenda. Is someone misunderstood? I'm just trying, just trying to be clear. I just didn't, I made the agenda item as it is because based off the email I got, so. Is there any other conversation you guys want to have on this topic tonight? We'll have to talk more about this in future meetings. I would recommend, we explore it further, and I'm concerned about that timeline as well. All right, anything else, Mayor?
I'd like to talk about this in the future, but I'd also like to take a break. We're working Dave pretty hard right now as an interim administrator. We have to hire a new city administrator. Any city administrator that's seriously looking at this position is probably watching this meeting right now. If you look at the grant application at the DNR, they actually have a huge packet that goes along with it because these are contentious issues. I don't want to scare our next administrator away by throwing something like this at him. We need to do things incrementally. I know that this is a big issue for you, Ian, but again, getting a little information and making sure that we're talking to the community and that we're hearing why the city made the decision 10 years ago, why we're going to consider a different decision it's going to take some time. It's just not going to happen fast. And I also don't want to have a new administrator that's got 50 plates to spin because we've decided we want to fix all the city's problems in a year rather than try to get this in long-term planning, and I think that's what Dave's trying to help us do right now is get us set, get the new administrator in here and start rolling out a 5-year capital plan, et cetera, that we need to temper ourselves just a little bit. So.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, moving on. Next up, number 13, review and discuss amendments to 2019 budget to qualify for expenditure restraint payment. Kim, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've put a budget amendment together for the 2019 budget for a couple different reasons. One, to kind of get us to a point where we're reflecting what actually has happened in 2019. We've had some extraordinary things go on as far as changes to our budget from a technology standpoint to equipment purchases. The other, probably more important, is that by doing the amendment, it puts us in a much better position to qualify for the expenditure restraint program grant, which would give us a 2021 revenue of anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000. And I think it would be wise to do the budget amendment for 2019 for both of those reasons. So I respect the fact that you've got a lot more to get through tonight. There's 2 sections. One's an explanation, one's the actual numbers. So if there's any questions, I'm here to try to answer those for you.
First question, and I apologize if I didn't see this when I was looking at this over the weekend. We have what's kind of timetable do we have on this?
This has to be submitted by May 1st.
So I would recommend that we take the time to dig deeper into this at maybe another committee of the whole.
Sure.
Because there are some significant changes, like when we reviewed it together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to review. But I would also like to be cognizant that this should probably also be finished before the next council is seated. So I think we have enough time to do this. That's my 2 cents off the bat. Anybody else? Thoughts? Ed, did you get your calculator out? And
Pencil ran out.
Pencils, yeah.
You know, and I was thinking too, if there's any one line that just strikes you as, I'd like more information before the next meeting, just shoot me an email and I can print off a detailed ledger so that you can actually see what those expenditures might have been that caused that particular line to go over or change. And that might be beneficial as well because it is pretty extensive. And to try to go through those line by line during a meeting would be daunting.
And some of these things, it's not like this is more money than that you exceeded on certain lines. This is also just putting things in the right place because things change, like the court.
Correct.
Rules or different rules were pointed out that we had, that had to be separated. So
true.
It's not just we spent too much money or we spent too little money in an item. There's multiple things in there. Mike?
I didn't do a good job of getting my homework done before tonight, Kim. I'll admit that.
Okay.
With one last day and other things. My main concern was, and you have it in here, the email between you and the Department of Revenue about what happened last year, and that we have a very clear understanding of why we're doing this, and that we can possibly qualify for the expenditure restraint program moving forward. So I'm glad that you have that documentation in here. Even though I'm reading the emails, I know I'm still going to have to ask a lot more questions, and they're not in my head tonight, I'll be honest. So if there's a possibility that we can continue this at the next committee of the whole.
Certainly.
And hopefully have a lighter agenda, because we've still got quite a bit to deal with tonight.
Yeah, I know. No, that's perfectly fine. I'm good with that. If there would be a particular line item or whatever, I'm more than willing to give you more information before the meeting, just to facilitate the next meeting going better or efficiently.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, number 14, looks like probably through 17, Zach will be up here. Item number 14, review and discuss request for proposal to contract for lawn mowing services for 2020. Hey, Zach.
Hello, good evening.
It's hard to talk about lawn mowing when you hear a snowblower going by.
Yeah, gotta get prepared for the next one.
Yeah.
So as you'll see in front of you here, you've got a RFP to go out for the weed, grass, shrubbery cutting that's contracted out. This, from my understanding, was brought to you last spring as well. Originally went out for a 2-year contract and didn't have any bidders, so it came back as one. So for a 1-year deal, so now we're back at it again. The contractor we had this last year has already informed me he does not have interest in applying again. So we've been doing our homework a little bit there. We've got a few other interested candidates, so that's exciting, promising. And we just thought it'd be good for you to see the proposal if you had anything that stuck out before it went out. Obviously, we come back with a contract when we have someone we'd like to award the contract to. And you will see I do have a section in here towards the end regarding the term of the contract that just would allow both parties, if both parties agree, to extend this more than a year, to one additional year if both parties are satisfied with the way things are going, so we don't have to bring this back every year.
Okay. Trina, go ahead.
So nothing much. I was just looking under equipment. Number for equipment that the contractor should have available. Number 3, small hand or riding mower. Would they probably need both? I can't imagine them doing all the mowing with a small push mower.
I would agree.
Just strike or but and. Thank you.
Zach, can you remind me who our current contractor is?
Coughlin is I don't know if he's got what his actual title of his company is.
Oh, okay. I just, the name's familiar. Okay, I just wanted to remind me. And did you get any indication, any feedback why he wasn't interested in?
He had a hard time keeping up with it, and he didn't feel that he was keeping his end of the bargain, and he didn't want to make that commitment again.
Okay. And then, sorry to hog all the questions, but is our pricing in line with the communities for this type of service, or what, in that contract?
To be honest, I haven't looked at the contracted side of it to see where you know, I mean, our contractors are coming in for bids, for bid numbers, because that's all based on their rates. That's nothing that we control, other than if we get a better rate, or, you know. But as far as the city side of it, that's the next discussion.
Sure. I guess on that note, whenever that does come up and we start getting bids, just have that information available.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's comparative, so we can compare, you know, what we paid in the past to what people are asking now.
Sure.
Just as a good pointer. It doesn't mean change anything necessarily, but just a point of reference. Ed?
Has Attorney Johnson reviewed this? Should he review this? You did? You're fine with it? Right? And the contractor awarded the work shall submit proof of liability insurance. Do we normally put an amount in there, or should we?
We should, and I seem to remember that there is kind of a standard that the city uses for that.
Should that be in the RFP?
That would probably be a good idea, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then, as to your renewal of contract, the final item.
I knew you were going to find that.
Thank you. You wrote not less than 90, and then in parentheses, 60 days. If we could
That would be my mistake.
resolve.
Editing mistake there.
Which one?
I would prefer 60 if anybody has any other.
Fine.
References.
I like consistency.
Yeah.
So please work with Paul on finding an
Yep.
insurance
I can
amount.
send you
that
the
should be in there.
insurance language tomorrow, Zach.
Mike?
So my understanding is that this is all budget neutral because this contractor would be providing the services for the people that are not in compliance.
Correct.
And then they would get billed through the DPW, or they would be billing the, how does that work?
Correct. The billing comes through DPW and then to City Hall, and the bills are sent out.
Okay, so is there a, how does that work through the code, I guess? If it's a violation and like this person gets the contract and they're charging twice as much as the last provider, do we need to submit a notice to the people who aren't mowing their lawns or cutting their weeds? How does that work? Is that on our fee schedule?
No, I don't think, I mean, because our fee schedule is not really existent in that sense.
This is a violation and we're going to correct the problem and we don't need to tell you how much it's going to cost until you get the bill. Is that kind of it, or? Okay. Good. Are you the weed commissioner?
I am.
Congratulations. I thought we had a weed czar in Columbus, but I haven't dove into that part of the code.
Are any questions on this? Are we ready to morph into the next one? Quote, Mary Jo? Or something? Okay. Ready to morph? All right, go ahead, Zach. And then
All
we're-
right, so the next one is kind of more of the fee schedule from the city side of it. Just like the sidewalk shoveling where it was a $50 fee, it's kind of the same thing on the city side of it for the grass complaints. We're talking about administrative staff time, labor staff time, equipment costs there and back. And you'll see that from all that info. Right now it's only a $15 fee, which is not covering much of anything. And you will see here on my recommendation is to consider raising this fee to $73.64 based on the attached information, which shows the cost of city labor and equipment for grass and weed violations. Now this is all based off of a 1 hour there and back, because just like the snow removal, you have to do your homework or your math based on if there was one complaint and not if you were out chasing the long list of complaints. So really, again, we're just recouping staff time.
Yeah. I mean, I support raising that fee 100%. No, I don't support raising it 100%. I am totally in support of raising this fee to $73.64. I should probably be more clarify that. Yeah, I know. 500%. Any thoughts or comments?
Oh, much like the snow, I'm still against raising administrative fees like that. We haven't even begun to add in the price of the actual mowing.
I would encourage residents to not break the ordinance and mow their yard. This isn't like snow. It takes several weeks to grow grass long enough to know they're in violation.
It can take a couple days for the dandelions to get too high.
Go ahead, Katie, I'm sorry.
12 inches is the current guideline?
It is the current, it is, Mr. Paul Johnson did bring that to the ordinance committee. So it is there right now, waiting its review. I believe the recommendation is to move that to 8 inches. And one part that has not been recommended there that I would recommend is to move it from 7 days to get in compliance to 4. Because if you're already at, whether it's 8 inches or 12 inches, if you give it another week, you're looking at a hayfield.
Right. I have to say I disagree, Trina. I think we should be reimbursed the cost of what we're shelling out there. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate you breaking it down like this for us. I think that's really helpful. Little things like this, I guess I don't know how often this is actually coming up and this is actually occurring. But yeah, if the current, right now it's 12 inches, that takes a long time to grow grass that long, and that's just basically neglect in my opinion. And then if they're given a notice from the city for a week to mow that and it's still not done, I believe they should have to pay for any follow-up that the city has to do on our end. So
anyone else? Mayor?
When we worked on the snow ordinance, did we do anything incremental for repeat offenders, or did we not do that?
We have not readdressed that
Okay.
yet. I was waiting to see how many of those we ended up with this year before bringing that back.
Okay.
Just so we have a little bit of data on it.
I like the recommendation. We have a DPW to help maintain our parks and our roads in the city, and we shouldn't be providing a service to homeowners that, that's not the point. I guess the point here is that we have to recover our cost if that happens. So I appreciate you breaking this all down, but we shouldn't be losing money on it.
Anyone else? So you're looking for us to approve a new fee schedule 7364. You have to do that, by the way. That's what you're asking. us
Correct, to
change
move that
this.
forward to count, yes.
All right. Is anybody else opposed to moving it forward? Ed?
Just to clarify, Attorney Johnson said plus the cost. This would be 7364 plus the cost of the contracted lawn mowing service, just so everybody's aware. Okay, just want to make sure we're all operating on the same page.
And the snow is $100 something, $132?
111 and some
111.
change.
Plus the linear.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other opposition. Trina, your comments are noted. I appreciate them. But we'll move that forward to the next regular meeting for approval. Zach, how you doing up there?
Good.
All right, next up, number 16, review and discuss the stormwater project at Fireman's Park, 2nd Ward Creek.
Yep, so this is just kind of a notice, update. David asked me to bring it forward just because it was going to be on the council tonight as well, just to kind of review, make sure we're all on the same page here. As stated in these past meetings, councils have made aware of the failing culvert near the deer pen and the importance and urgency to address the issue. Through council discussions and information provided by Rooker Milky as well as Columbia County, it has been decided that the best solution is to tear out the existing culvert from the deer pen bridge to the creek opening near the American Legion, then repair this section of the creek and leave it as an open ditch to match the open ditch section upstream. And initially this was not expected to be quite as costly of a fix as we're seeing now. The county Jason had kind of seen those initial quotes and was, you know, obviously very pleased with them, but had some concerns that they were going to start this project and then kind of say, hey, hold on a second, we're incurring some more costs here. So he invited them, the county, to come in and kind of discuss this some more and go over some more information that Ruger Milky had and get some true numbers here so we didn't have any surprises when we started this project. So you see we're at the 80,000. I put in a 5% contingency, whether it's necessary or not. It's a little bit of a comfort thing because you're digging up ground and who knows what you're going to find, what issues you might run into. But otherwise, that's, you know, as long as everything is approved moving forward, I will be scheduled to have that work done as soon as the county can in the spring.
The only comment I would have is, in our resolution we approved tonight that had $80,000 as opposed to 84.
Yep.
616. So, what would your plan be to cover the delta there?
We can discuss that in my next topic.
Oh, that's right. You got a little. Okay. All right, Mike, do you have something?
I do. The weekly pump rental. This has got to be a massive pump. I mean, you can pump an entire river with it.
It's got to move the entire creek. So what will happen is the creek will be dammed up south of the bridge, so closer to the high school, and that pump will have to move all the water from the creek from that point to the opening past the construction area. So the construction area is not disturbed. And then, you know, otherwise you have all the run out and wash out of all the disturbed materials.
Do we rent this from the county or the county renting
The county
it?
rents it.
Do you know, I mean, how many gallons per minute that pumps?
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
The reason I'm asking is it's $37,000 just for pump rental, and we have more work to do. Is there another way of looking at this? You know what I mean? We go to the state auction this time, and we buy a used pump for $20,000 and use it for the summer and sell it. You know, I don't know anything about this, but it's such a huge part of the expense here, and I can understand how you schedule the work is going to be a big difference. If we do this early in spring where there's flooding, the pump better be able to handle whatever's thrown at it. But if you do it during a dry spell where you can dam it up and have a smaller pump, maybe you know, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, there's always options to buy. I know there are other communities that have decided to buy because they've been doing larger projects and things like that. You know, I believe the Village of Oregon purchased a pump and it's 80 to 100. But you know, yeah, if that's something that the council is interested in, trying to find a used pump, but it's a reminder that once we own it and it's operating under us, we're now responsible for it 24 hours a day while it's running. And if it fails while it's not being overseen in the middle of the night or something, and then it no longer is pumping the water out, and that water washes through our construction zone, then we've got a bigger problem with the DNR.
And then it happens well. It's a county pump, but they're responsible for that.
Correct.
So they're not monitoring it. You know, and something bad happens, it's on them to.
Right. So there's some liability that's
Transfer
taken off of
liability,
that.
Is this, do you know, in talking to them, this is a vendor that they work with a lot?
Correct.
Okay. So they feel like
This is I'm pretty positive it's Lincoln Contractors is who they rent these through.
Okay. I just had to ask the question. It
Yeah.
seems like for $37,000, you could dig another channel and have the water go through that rather than pump it, but there's probably DNR issues with that, so.
That's I think the risk outweighs the. All right.
So that's my update there.
Okay, thank you. Next up.
You bet.
What do I got here?
Next up is a street sweeper.
17.
Just gonna pass out a couple of pictures here.
I'm sorry, do we need to move that forward? Yeah, I didn't ask if we wanted to move that forward to the next regular meeting. Is everyone comfortable moving this request forward? Yeah, sorry, I jumped ahead here. I saw a picture of a street sweeper coming down the road, so. Okay, thanks, Dave, I heard you comment on that, so thanks for catching that. We are moving that forward. Okay, review and discuss purchase of DPW street sweeper.
All right, so DPW staff has been pretty diligent in their homework, hoping that, fingers crossed, that this was going to come through and for approval. And so you will see in your picture, the white and green one is the one that we are looking at purchasing versus the white and red and blue Elgin Pelican, which is what we currently have. Like I said, we've been doing our homework here in hopes this would be approved. Received quotes on several different street sweepers and had the opportunity to test drive both the Global and the Elgin Pelican, both newer models. While testing these street sweepers, they have had the opportunity to talk to staff members of other communities to discuss the pros and cons of each unit. From this came the front runner, the Global M3 street sweeper, sold by Casper's Truck Equipment. A few things that made this unit stand out from the others included safety, ease of operation, ease of maintenance, and customer service from Casper and Global, and I'll touch on some of that. Initially, when I had a salesman reach out to me about this Global and I showed it to staff and it was something different, and they said, no thanks. And I said, okay, well, let's be a little open-minded about it and give it a try and hop in. And they hopped in and thought it wasn't so bad, and then they had the opportunity to try one of the newer version of what we've got now. And they said, I don't want a newer version of what we have now. I want to try this Global. It's something different. We felt a lot safer in it. It's got a lot better line of sight. You can kind of see in the Pelican we have now where you sit back and you've got the big nose in front of you versus the new one where you're right at the front of the machine. So your line of sight is much better to see what's going on in front of you, whether you're talking about little kids running in front of you, vehicles, you name it, whatever ends up in front of the street sweeper. So there's everyone loved it safety wise that way. The ease of operation, they were very pleased with just the general operation. In the current one, as you're driving, you're always like this to see your curb line, versus now they don't have that. They can sit there. They've got a nice air ride seat, and they don't crawl out of there with aches and pains from being in a stiff position all day. Ease of maintenance, they were pleasantly surprised with how easy this was to grease and maintain, and everything was very accessible versus now where everything's on the floor. You got to get down on your hands and knees and crawl around to try to access all the grease points and different things like that. And so far our customer service has been fantastic through this group. They've been very responsive. I asked for an update or asked for information, and I've had very, very responsive work with them. And I've also done my homework calling other municipalities that are using this Global street sweeper, and haven't had anyone speak too negatively of it. Obviously, everyone's gonna have you tell you something's going wrong because it's a piece of equipment that gets run a lot more depending on where you live. But they've all had very good luck with them. The biggest organization I try to get a hold of, but turns out they're pretty tough, is New York City. New York City runs strictly Globals. So I just thought it'd be kind of fun to hear from a big organization like that. But I've also heard from plenty of organizations that are 5,000 people strong. So.
Thank you, Zach, for that. Is your primary customer service contact, are they Appleton or the Milwaukee or Wausau?
Milwaukee. Yep.
So
He's
if you
actually
had service or anything, you would be...
Yeah, so and then the head service guy, so the sales rep is out of Milwaukee, the head service guy is out of Chicago, but he said he's more than happy to swing up. The training is included in this. It's at minimum 1 day. He said he's happy to do 2 if that's what everyone feels is necessary. The Pelican options were all training costs extra. That's not part of your original quote. So that was a nice little feel-good thing there to know they were willing to put the time in with us to make sure that things are going to start off on the right foot, and that we're not going to be calling them every couple weeks the first summer as we're trying to get used to this piece of equipment. And as you'll see here in the quotes, this machine came, I initially earmarked $175,000. This machine came in below that. A lot of these other Pelicans are several years older with several more miles and hours on them for closer to that 175 range. So I'm pretty happy with the price point we were able to come in at.
Mike?
Is it diesel? I believe. Diesel engine. It's a 115 horsepower John Deere, but it's a 4045 Tier 3. I just assume that's diesel.
I do believe you're correct.
Okay.
Must be diesel. It's got a block heater.
Yep.
Is the current
Luckily, we
Pelican-
don't have to use that block heater too much.
Is the Pelican that we currently have a diesel or not?
I can't tell you for sure.
Okay. I like that. I just wanted some clarification on the pages with the highlights.
Sure.
So is this just showing all the features that came with from the factory?
These were some of them that, some of these will have to be added, so this was a demo unit.
Okay.
So they will have to add a couple of these things on here, so we made sure anything that we wanted to see specifically, or that they were willing to change out, to update, that they'll be done before it gets to us.
Okay, so that's included in the price. Okay. What is the leaf gate? What does that do?
There's a piece in the middle, so if you envision the bottom of it, there's two brooms that are coming in and kicking everything to the middle, and there's a gate in the middle of it that can be added or removed depending on picking up leaves or just general street debris, and it's supposed to help with leaf pickup.
Okay, good.
It prevents it from coming up in big clogs or clumps as they described it.
Okay.
And the groups that I've talked to that have used this are pretty pleased the way it does with leaf pickup because of its design. Whereas, so this Global has brushes on both sides of the machine, whereas the Pelican only has the gutter line. So you can actually run brushes on both sides. A lot of people might not think that the outside or the middle of the lane is doing a lot, but it might not be doing a lot on the outside, but internally it's helping keep things moving in the way they're supposed to go.
Sure. And I see there's a $10,000 trade-in for the model that we currently have.
Yep, so that's something I wanted to discuss. If council is okay with moving forward with a trade-in versus putting it on surplus. I've been trying to watch ones that are on surplus right now. Anything from a 98 to a 2005 is right around that $10,000 mark. And I really think by the time you mess around with putting it on surplus and dealing with trying to sell it on surplus, we're just as well off with the trade-in.
That's why I asked. So it's your recommendation. If you think $10,000 is a good trade-in, that's fine with me. So, thanks, Zach.
I agree with that. I saw that in here and I was wondering if you were going to, I thought maybe this would be something you would sell and go through the disposal of fixed assets, but this is, I think, you never know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
This is guaranteed.
Yep.
So you could get 8, you could get 12, but
and what I learned through the experience of this last surplus that we went through, the amount of time that I've got to rely on my crew to answer questions because I can't speak to the equipment well enough is, to have Jenny or whomever taking phone calls or meeting people out there because they want to look over the equipment, and it sucks up a lot of time.
Yep. Makes sense to me. Is everybody okay with that part of it? Okay. In general, any comments or concerns about moving forward with this? Seeing none? Okay.
So then that answers the question of that contingency of the creek. that would be my hope.
So, okay. Gotcha. So contingency, 5% contingency would be covered by anything extra in the street sweeper purchase.
If that's all right with council.
Is that all right with council? I'm seeing some shaking heads of yes. Okay. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the work you did, and thanks for hanging out tonight, working through this. Next up,
staff will be in for a full cleanup of the streets at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're keeping the mains open at the moment, and then the full city they'll be in at 3 a.m. to make sure they're ready for the morning commute.
I appreciate that update. Thank you. Next up, review resolution to include library as additional site for absentee voting for the April 7th, 2020 election. As the memo states, we've done this in the past. It was helpful. It opens up additional hours as opposed to City Hall, which will close at 4:30. The library absentee voting site will be open until 8. So this was requested by the city clerk's office. I don't know if Pat had any other comments. Okay. Mike, do you have a question?
I support this. Pat brought this to me. I thought it was a great idea too. This would just be for the spring election, April 7th. And if we wanted to continue doing that, we'd have to have another resolution for the fall elections then. Is that correct?
That is what the Wisconsin Elections Commission has requested.
Okay.
Or recommended.
Okay.
So I did talk to the library, and they're very enthusiastic. They would like to see how it pans out after the election.
Okay.
And see if we can move forward, and if they want to do one more or just permanently. that would be up to them.
That would be wonderful, but yeah,
It
we'll,
would be.
one step at a time. Thanks, Pat.
I support this, and I don't know of anybody else, I don't see anybody else up here that would wanna restrict access to
Oh, yeah. Great
absentee
idea.
voting, so, great idea, thanks, Trina, I agree. We'll move that forward to the next regular meeting. Okay, next up, 19, adjourn to closed session pursuant to state statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning a strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. We need a motion to go into closed session. Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Pat, if you did any discussion? All right, seeing none. Pat, if you could take a roll call.
Gray? Johnson? Reed? Ryan? Highland? Tom?
Aye. I don't think you said me, but I said aye. Did you? No. Did I say aye? Hey, I did not hear my name. Thank you. Aye. All right, and I don't see that we're going to be coming back into open session, or I'm sorry, when we come back into open session, we're going to go back into closed session again and then reconvene to open session. No action is on the agenda tonight after that, so we will tune off for the night on the TV. And have a great night. Stay safe. Thank you. Wait, we need to vote now, don't we? We vote yet? Gosh, it's been...